Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto was the legend among the wind and got harem? Part 1. Huge shout out to Resurrection of the Forgotten for this story. If you want more awesome fanfiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So without wasting any time, let's get into the video. With a self-satisfied smirk spreading across her face, Korra couldn't deny that she took some pleasure in evading the metal-bending officers that were chasing her and Naga, her best friend and polar bear dog. She felt justified though. She stopped a few thugs from harassing an elderly man, and she was the one being arrested for it. So okay, the street and a couple of stores were damaged in the process, but technically she did save the day. That was her job as the Avatar. Though obviously not everyone saw it that way, or aware of her status as the Avatar. As such, she was now leading the metal-bending police force on a merry chase across all of Republic City. Being all but locked up by the members of the White Lotus for a majority of her life in the South Pole also made this some of the most fun she had in a long time. Korra's illegal yet totally justified fun was cut short when she felt something snag her ponytail and jerk it back painfully. A quick look over her shoulder revealed that one of the pursuing metalbenders managed to grab her ponytail with their cable. Acting on instinct, Korra bended the water of a bridge they were crossing over, making it rise up before freezing it, snapping the cable, freeing herself, and causing the metalbender to slam face first into the newly made iceberg. Nice try, pal. Korra taunted the officer, too busy to notice that she was about to slam into someone. The person jumped down from a nearby rooftop, landing on the ground seamlessly. The person wore orange robe-like shirt with long sleeves that was held close by a dark green sash wrapped near to their waist, loose-fitting black pants and dark blue shoes that blended well with their pants. They had a large red scarf around their neck, and with part of it covering their head, keeping a large part of their face hidden. The person also wasn't putting much attention on their immediate surroundings, as such, missing that he was about to be run over by the large polar bear dog and their owner, as they were looking the way they had come, searching for something. Though just because Korra or the person ahead of them weren't being vigilant didn't mean that Naga wasn't. Seeing that she was about to crash into someone, Naga came to a quick stop, managing to avoid crashing into the person. Unfortunately, not expecting the sudden stop, Korra was sent flying off Naga's saddle, losing her grip on the reins. "Oh!" she started to yell the moment she flew off. The person spun around, hearing someone screaming heading their way. They only got the briefest of glimpses of a girl who looked like she belonged to the water tribe before she slammed into them, knocking them off their feet, resulting in them both crashing painfully onto the ground below, in a slightly tangled heap. "Ow!" Korra muttered in slight pain from crashing into the person. Picking herself up somewhat, she absently noted that she was now lying on top of the person she had unintentionally crashed into. Because of her current position, the person's face was no longer being obstructed by their scarf. The first thing Korra realized about the person was they were male with lightly tanned skin. Though his eyes were initially scrunched closed, they eventually opened to reveal a set of blue eyes that were as blue as any member of the water tribe, Korra thought to herself. The next couple details about the guy Korra noticed was that he had yellow hair, a color of hair that Korra had never heard of anyone else having, and that he had whisker marks on his cheeks, 3 on each side. Korra found herself curious about them, wanting to reach out and touch them, wondering if they were birthmarks, tattoos, or even real, as they made the guy quite distinctive. Not that the color of his hair didn't do that by itself already. Hey," Korra said rather awkwardly once she realized she had been staring at the guy she was on top of for a bit, and that he was now looking back at her. "Sorry about that," she apologized as she hurried to get off him. "I was kind of distracted," she tried to explain herself. "It's fine," the guy was able to grunt out as he sat up. So they were now sitting across from one another, rubbing the spot on the back of his head that had impacted with the hard ground. "So was I," he freely admitted. Almost simultaneously, they both seemed to remember what they had been looking at before they crashed. Spinning around, the two spotted metalbenders behind them, and when they turned back around, they saw the officers behind the other, not to mention the airships in the air around them, cutting any avenue of escape. "Surrender! We have you surrounded!" one metal-bending officer shouted loudly and obviously. As one, the two raised their hands up in surrender, Naga standing behind her owner panting slightly from the run, completely oblivious to the situation that Korra found herself in. As they were being led away, Korra felt there was one thing she still had to do. "I'm Korra, by the way," she introduced herself, holding out her hand as best she could while cuffed. The person looked at the outstretched hand for just a second before taking it in theirs. "Naruto," he answered with a large grin. Naruto and Korra soon found themselves transported to the police station and in an interrogations room together. They were told to wait as someone would be with them shortly, and in the meantime the two made some rather awkward small talk. It's not every day you get arrested with someone you never met before, after all. From Naruto, Korra learned that the teen was a little under a year older than her, lived his entire life in Republic City, and that his home life was complicated. How so, Korra didn't know, as the teen refused to go into it. Naruto learned that Korra had just arrived in the city after stowing away in the cargo hold of a ship and leaving the South Pole for the first time. Naruto openly laughed when Korra told him of the damage she unintentionally caused when helping some citizens from a trio of gangsters, even when she threatened to punch him, though he did commend her for actually doing something instead of just ignoring it or waiting for the metal bending officers to show up. Something which pleased Korra greatly. "Seriously, what is the big deal? Those thugs were threatening that shopkeeper, so I stepped in and helped him. I hardly should be getting arrested for that," Korra complained rather loudly so that she might be heard outside of the interrogation room. As if in response, the door to the room opened, revealing a woman with dark, if not slightly graying, shoulder-length hair in a metal-bending uniform that was darker in color than the average officer with golden accents. "Let's see, multiple counts of destruction of public and city property, evading arrest, not to mention the blatant vandalism of the statue of Fire Lord Zuko." The woman read the list of charges off the files on a clipboard before she slammed it onto the table between the two teens. "You two are in a heap of trouble," the woman stated, agitated. Korra opened her mouth to argue when she registered one of the charges. "Vandalism?" she repeated, looking over at Naruto, who was sitting beside her. In response, Naruto just shrugged his shoulders dismissively. "In my defense, it looks much better now," Naruto claimed. The woman's eyebrow visibly twitched at the claim. "You painted it pink," she grounded out accusingly. Naruto once again shrugged his shoulders. "Like I said, better?" he replied nonchalantly. "I'm sure that old man Zuko would agree," the teen added at the end. Korra found herself on the verge of laughing, and slightly in awe, at Naruto painting a statue of Fire Lord Zuko and then calling him an old man. The avatar managed to choke back her laughter, though, when the woman reading them the riot act sent a heated glare her way that Korra was sure that if the woman had been a firebender she would have been charred to a crisp. Naruto, on the other hand, gave Korra a fox-like grin that Korra found herself returning. The woman seemed to grow more annoyed at the camaraderie between the two teens before she slammed her hand on the table to get their attention focused back on her. "That's enough of that. You two don't seem to realize just how much trouble you are both in at the moment," the woman said angrily, looking between the two teens in front of her. Snapping back to the situation at hand, Korra began to argue her case. "Listen, this has all been a huge misunderstanding," Korra said before looking to the teen at her side. "Well, mostly a misunderstanding," correcting herself as Naruto's grin became a bit sheepish, though the amusement was still clear in his eyes. Turning her focus back on the woman, Korra continued. "I couldn't just ignore someone in trouble," she claimed before she played the avatar card. According to Katara, when Aang revealed that he was the avatar to people, it would either get them out of trouble, or at least some leeway. "You see, I'm the avatar," Korra revealed in what she hoped was a dramatic enough fashion for the biggest impact. The room was silent for a moment, only a moment, before that silence was broken, just not by the woman like Korra had been expecting. "Whoa, you're the avatar?" Naruto asked curiously, looking the girl over carefully as if he was suddenly going to spot something he hadn't before. Korra was taken back but quickly recovered as she grinned broadly at Naruto in return. "Yup, that's me. Bender of the four elements, and bridge between this world and the spirit one," Korra announced proudly. "So you know how to airbend?" Naruto questioned her, causing Korra to deflate immediately. "Well, not yet," she admitted, sulking slightly before recovering. But that's why I'm here. So that Tenzin can teach me, Korra said, defending herself slightly. The woman coughed to draw the teen's attention back to her once more. Oh, I am well aware of who you are. And your avatar title might impress some people, the woman said, the two women avoiding glancing at the only other person in the room even as Naruto waved cheekily in acknowledgement of the statement. But not me, she stated firmly. Korra let out a heavy sigh, a little disappointed that her gamble failed completely before steeling herself. Alright, fine, Korra said. Then I want to talk to whoever's in charge. She demanded, only to be confused by Naruto's sudden chuckling at her demand. The woman finally took the seat across from the two teens, a quick glare directed at Naruto causing the teen to stop chuckling, before focusing back on Korra. You're talking to her, she revealed, also revealing why Naruto suddenly started to laugh at Korra's demand. I'm Chief Beifong. Korra's eyes widened in surprise as she made a connection now that the dark-haired woman identified who she was. Wait, Beifong? Lin Beifong? Korra questioned for clarity's sake and getting a nod in turn. You're Toph's daughter, she pointed out, looking over to Naruto for a moment, as if he should be as surprised at who the woman was just as much as she was. What of it? Lin returned gruffly, looking at the Water Tribe girl, scrutinizing, wondering where she was going with that tidbit of information. Korra was a little put off by Lin's apathetic response. Why are you treating me like a criminal? Avatar Aang and your mother were friends. They saved the world together. Korra nearly shouted in distress. You can forget getting any sympathy or mercy, Korra. Naruto spoke up. She'd toss you into a jail cell and throw away the keys for stealing a cookie from the cookie jar, he said half-jokingly. Lin let out an annoyed sigh. While I would not have put it like that, he's not entirely wrong, Lin admitted. And what you're talking about is ancient history, and it's got diddle squat to do with the mess you're in right now. You can't just waltz in here and dole out vigilante justice like you own the place. And you can't just go around vandalizing everything because you think it would be funny. Lin finished by turning her attention to Naruto. A slot in the far side of the wall opened up, revealing a police officer, drawing the attention of the occupants of the room. Chief, the man addressed. Councilman Tenzin is here, he informed her. Lin let out a tired sigh at the news. Let him in, she instructed as calmly as she could as she stood from the table to face the door behind her. The door slowly slid open, revealing Tenzin, a bald man with a blue arrow tattooed on his head, with a beard and mustache, and wearing yellow-orange and red robes typical to airbenders. As the man walked into the room, he attempted to appear composed, but anyone who knew the man could tell he was disgruntled and barely keeping up appearances. Tenzin, Korra beamed with a sheepish smile on her face. Sorry. I got a little sidetracked on my way to see you, she apologized, attempting to make light of the situation. Hey, old man. Naruto greeted the airbender cheerfully, having been in the same position far too often in the past to be bothered by it. You know Tenzin? Korra asked, looking to Naruto in surprise, an eyebrow raised in question, wondering how the teen knew the man who was to be her airbending teacher. Tenzin's eyebrows started to twitch repeatedly, a clear indication of how annoyed he was by Naruto's greeting. Despite his annoyance, Tenzin stifled it to the best of his abilities as he took a deep breath and greeted Lin pleasantly. Lin, you are looking radiant as usual, he complimented the woman. Naruto snorted in amusement, confusing Korra more as to why. Cut the garbage, Tenzin, Lin retorted austerely, answering Korra's question as to why Naruto found Tenzin's attempts to compliment the woman amusing. Why is the Avatar in Republic City? I thought you were supposed to be moving down to the South Pole to train her, she questioned the man before stern look shifted into a glare. And I thought you were keeping an eye on Naruto during his lessons so he didn't skip off and stayed out of trouble? Tenzin brushed off Lin's rebuttal to his comment simply enough, having dealt with it for a number of years now, but he was brought up short at her final question and the accusation it carried, leaving him spluttering for an explanation. Yes, well, Tenzin sputtered a bit. I received an urgent summons from the council that pulled me away. He tried to explain, but Lin was obviously not satisfied by it. Tenzin coughed into his hand in order to regain his composure and press ahead. As to the other matter, my relocation has been temporarily delayed. Tenzin stated seriously, his mind briefly flashing to all the problems currently facing Republic City before continuing. The Avatar, on the other hand, will be heading back to the South Pole immediately, where she will stay put. He finished directing the last bit of his declaration specifically towards Korra. But Korra tried to protest, but a look from stopped her before she could get a word in edgewise. If, Tenzin began, cutting Korra off. You would be so kind as to drop the charges against Korra. I will take full responsibility for today's regrettable events, cover all the damages, and make sure that Naruto cleans up his mess. Tenzin promised. Actually, Naruto started drawing everyone's attention to him. A friend of mine already took care of that after I was caught. He revealed, and when he saw the confusion on the faces of the other occupants in the room, he elaborated a bit. I used water-based paint that's easy to wash off. When I was caught, a water-bending friend of mine took care of the paint. The whiskered teen finished. For a few seconds Lin looked at the pair as if weighing her options, but after a few more seconds of deliberation before letting out a breath and unlocking their handcuffs with a flippant wave of her hand. Fine. Lin relented. I'll have to have one of my men make sure the paint has been removed, but get her out of my city and keep a closer eye on him. She all but ordered Tenzin firmly. Tenzin took that chance to beat a hasty retreat. Always a pleasure, Lin, he said somewhat hurriedly, turning around walking out. Let's go, Korra, Naruto. Naruto followed after Tenzin, first briefly turning around. See you later, Naruto said, bidding his farewell to the women, giving her a two-fingered salute before exiting. Korra didn't hesitate to follow after Tenzin and Naruto, but not without keeping her eyes on Lin. Making eye contact with the Avatar, Lin gestured that she would be keeping her eyes on her, which Korra returned. Really now, Naruto, when are you going to start acting with more responsibility and maturity, and stop with these incessant pranks of yours? Korra heard Tenzin question Naruto just as she caught up with them. You two make it sound I'm doing something illegal, Naruto mumbled. People hold certain expectations for you, Naruto, Tenzin said rather tiredly, having had many similar conversations with the boy in the past. You performing pranks, defacing important monuments, will not convince anyone that you are living up those expectations, the airbender uttered, trying to get the teen to see reason. All right, Korra spoke up loudly, drawing the two's attention. Can one of you please explain to me how you know each other? Naruto looks back at Korra with a look of confusion now on his face before looking back at Tenzin. She doesn't know? He asked obviously. Tenzin colored slightly at the question in embarrassment, but it was only faintly. My time with Korra has always been limited, so any time I spent with her in the South Pole usually involved us discussing any pressing issues, Tenzin returned. Really? Naruto questioned disbelievingly with a raised eyebrow. Can someone please explain? Korra asked once again with a bit of exasperation in her voice. Naruto turned his attention to Korra, barely being able to suppress his grin at what he was about to reveal to Korra and just how she might react. I'm his son, Naruto divulged, pointing back at Tenzin from over his shoulder. Korra was left in shocked silence, her mouth hanging open just a bit with eyes widening, as she tried to process what she just learned. You're his? Korra was able to stammer out. His son! She shouted at the end. Korra let that statement sink for a second before continuing. Why have you never mentioned him before? Korra asked Tenzin pressingly, because as far as she had ever been aware, the master airbender only had one son, Milo. How come I've never met him before? Like I said, we've always had more pressing issues to discuss when I would visit, Tenzin reiterated. And as to why Naruto has never come with me on my visits, well, the airbender grew hesitant to finish, his eyes darting back and forth for a suitable explanation. Well, that's sort of complicated, with certain circumstances refusing to allow it, he explained vaguely. Korra wasn't all that satisfied by Tenzin's explanation, but decided to focus her attention on Naruto instead. A few minutes later, the three were waiting in a different part of the police HQ where animals were usually kept, waiting for an officer to return with Naga. Meanwhile, Naruto and Korra were talking amongst themselves. Tenzin standing behind them watching them carefully, Korra asking Naruto questions in order to get to know him better. So you are an airbender, right? Korra asked carefully. Though Tenzin was his father, and all his siblings were airbenders, there was always the chance. Naruto took a second before answering. Yup, he replied, generating a gentle gust of wind to prove his point. Korra smiled at the display, looking forward to when she would be able to airbend as well. Then what about your airbending tattoos? Shouldn't you have them by now? She asked him curiously. A wide, proud grin spread across Naruto's face at the question. Watch this, Naruto said as a look of concentration appeared on Naruto's face. Korra watched Naruto carefully, not sure what she was to be looking at but not wanting miss it either way. It only took a few seconds, but Korra's eyes widened in awe as a blue arrow tattoo appeared on Naruto's forehead and the back of his hands. But unlike the normal airbending tattoo of a solid blue arrow, Korra noticed that this one was more intricate, made up of smaller lines and shapes all woven together. Whatever Naruto was doing, he stopped after a couple more seconds and the tattoos slowly disappeared once more. That was awesome! Korra exclaimed excitedly, drawing more than a few curious glances of the few people scattered around the room. Not that Korra paid them any real mind as she was focused on Naruto. How did you do that? It's a special ink that reacts to a person's chi, Naruto answered. It was hard to make, finding the right ingredients that would react to chi, and took a long time to get right, but it was worth it. The blue-eyed teen decided. From there I just came up with my own design. 1. Tenzin, huffing behind them, drew the attention of the two teens to him. I should have never agreed to let you use that ink, Tenzin grumbled. Receiving your airbending tattoos are an important and sacred rite of passage for all airbenders, and now you chose to take that ancient tradition to appear flashier, the airbending master argued. Yeah, I get it already, Naruto replied with a roll of his eyes. Naruto, Tenzin said warningly. Okay, what about your hair and those whiskers? Korra asked, stepping before what looked like the beginning of a fight could break out between father and son. Did you paint your hair so that you could stand out more too? Naruto tilted his head to the side as he grabbed a strand of his hair between his fingers, looking at it. No, Naruto said with a shake of his head. This is my natural hair color, he affirmed. Really? Korra asked, surprised by that bit of information. How? I've never seen anyone with that hair color. Naruto opened his mouth to answer, but Tenzin stepped in between the two before he could say anything. We should leave that matter for another time, Tenzin stated definitively. Preferably away from prying ears. He added in a whisper before continuing normally. As to Naruto's whiskers, they're actually scars that received after an incident when he was younger. Tenzin informed the Avatar, but didn't go into details about the incident in question. Now Korra, while I am glad that you and Naruto seem to be getting along, we should be talking about how you decided to sneak yourself to Republic City, and what arrangements need to be made in order to return you to the South Pole. Korra grew worried at Tenzin's intentions. Tenzin, please don't send me back home, Korra pleaded. You blatantly disobeyed my wishes, and the orders of the White Lotus, Tenzin reiterated. Despite the anger that was clearly apparent on Tenzin, Korra refused to back down. Katara agreed with me that I should come, Korra told the man. She said my destiny is in Republic City. Tenzin's entire head turned a bright red at the mention of Katara, to the point that had he been a firebender, Naruto and Korra were sure that either steam or actual flames would be coming off of him. Don't bring my mother into this, the man ordered loudly. Mama's boy, Naruto teased his father. Naruto, Tenzin warned his son once more. Look, Korra began. I can't wait any longer to finish my training. Being cooped up and hidden away from the world isn't helping me become a better avatar, she argued before continuing, speaking far more compassionately than before. Tenzin stares at Korra carefully while stroking his beard, willing to at the very least hear her out, Naruto staring at the blue-eyed girl silently. I saw a lot of the city today, and it's totally out of whack. I understand now why you need to stay. Republic City does need you, but it needs me too. A new voice cut into the conversation before Tenzin could respond, something the older airbender was silently grateful for as he wasn't sure how to respond. "Is this your polar bear dog, miss?" A police officer asked dryly as Naga licks the man, inadvertently styling the man's hair into a swirl. Hours later the sun began to set as Tenzin, Naruto, Korra, and Naga are on board a small wooden ship heading toward Air Temple Island. The ship sailed close by Aang Memorial Island as Tenzin looked up at the statue of his father, his expression mournful, his mind briefly filled with thoughts of how much he missed his father before they returned to the present, wondering how he might have dealt with the situation. Naruto walked up to the man, his gaze also focused on the statue of his grandfather, wishing he could have known the man and not just the legend, a somber expression on his face. "She's not wrong, you know," Naruto told his father. Tenzin let out a sigh. "What are you talking about, Naruto?" Tenzin asked his son but didn't tear his gaze away from the statue of Aang. "Korra," Naruto said, looking back at the girl who was standing at the end of the ship staring at Republic City as it was lit up, as if trying to engrave the image of the city into her mind like she would never see it again. "What Yuchi said earlier at the station." Tenzin let out another sigh, looking away from the statue to look at his son, before replying. "You just don't understand how serious things are right now, Naruto," the man said resignedly. "I understand that despite the best efforts of the Earth Kingdom and the Water Tribe, things didn't change in the 100-year war until Grandpa Aang came back," Naruto returned. "The Avatar doesn't just maintain the balance of the world, they promote change. Republic City is being torn apart from the inside and needs its Avatar to give people hope and bring peace." The blonde finished before walking back towards Korra. Shortly after, the ship docked at Air Temple Island as the last few rays of sunlight set across the horizon. Already there waiting for them was a larger steamer ship with members of the White Lotus that were tasked to take Korra back to the South Pole. Korra looked at the ship resignedly, briefly looking back at Naruto and Tenzin, before she started walking to the ship with Naga beside her. A couple of gliders swept down from above with 3 children, Jinora, Ikki, and Milo, with Milo being carried piggyback by Jinora, Tenzin's other kids and Naruto's siblings. "Korra!" The 3 kids cheered, each one rushing to hug the Avatar. "Are you coming to live with us on the island?" Ikki asked excitedly. Korra looked apologetic as she kneeled before the 3 children. "No, I'm sorry, Ikki," Korra answered sadly, causing Ikki to groan in disappointment. "I have to go home now," she told them. "Hey brats," Naruto called out to his siblings, drawing their attention to him. "Naruto!" The 3 kids cried, shooting off of Korra and latching on to their brother instead. "Can't you convince Korra to stay?" Jinora asked her brother. "Please?" Ikki pleaded. "It's not up to me," Naruto told them, though he wished it was, because if it were, there was no way he would let her go. "It's up to the old man," he said, pointing to their father who was standing beside them. With a simple gesture, Naruto signaled his sisters to try and convince Tenzin. With impeccable nods of their heads, the 2 girls zipped towards their father, each latching onto one of his legs and looking up at the man with big puppy dog eyes. Milo moved to follow his sisters, but Naruto stopped him by grabbing him by the back of his shirt. "Not you, Milo," Naruto hissed out, getting a sheepish grin from the boy. As much as Naruto loved his younger brother, the little imp was hardly the most charismatic at times. Tenzin looked down at his daughters, his already shaky will faltering even more so as he stared into his eyes. "Please, can Korra stay?" Ikki asked her father, mustering up every ounce of cuteness that she possessed. Whatever resolve Tenzin possessed completely shattered, wrapped around his daughter's fingers as he was. "Wait!" Tenzin called after Korra, stopping the Avatar before she reached the ship as she looked at him with renewed hope. Tenzin walked to Korra, after shaking his daughters off his legs, and stared at her calmly. "Both you and Naruto were right," he admitted. "I have done my best to guide Republic City towards the dream my father had for it, but you are right. It has fallen out of balance since he passed. I thought I should put off your training in order to uphold his legacy, but you are his legacy. You may stay and train airbending here with me. Republic City needs its Avatar once again." Tenzin decided, placing a hand on Korra's shoulder. Korra stared at Tenzin for a moment, stunned before what he was saying completely registered in her mind. A large smile spread across Korra's face before she pulled Tenzin into a quick hug. Yes. Thank you. You're the best, Korra told the man happily. Soon enough, Korra released her hold of Tenzin before turning towards the others, the kids cheering in happiness at their father change in mind, and scooping the kids up in a hug, the lot of them laughing happily. Korra didn't stop there though, as she quickly made her way to Naruto and pulled him into the hug as well. Did you hear that I'm staying? Isn't that great? Korra asked joyfully. Yup. Naruto replied in agreement with a wide fox-like grin. Things are going to be so much more fun with you here, Korra, he declared, managing to get his arms out of the hold that Korra had them in before wrapping them around the girl, effectively squishing his siblings between the two. Not that they seemed to mind as they continued to laugh happily. Off to the side, Tenzin had a small smile on his face as he watched the scene. While he was happy by the way things turned out, he couldn't help but imagine what kind of hell he had unleashed on both himself and the city by allowing Naruto and Korra to be in close proximity of one another. Lin already didn't like the girl. He could only imagine how she would react because of his decision. I'm going to regret this, Tenzin thought to himself with a heavy sigh. The next day, Korra stood in front of City Hall on a stage behind a podium as a large crowd gathered to get their first glimpse of their new avatar. With Korra now staying in Republic City, it was decided that she would give a short conference where she said a few words and answered some questions. Hello, I'm Korra, your new avatar, Korra said into the microphone set out in front of her. Naruto sat on the edge of a nearby building, legs hanging over the edge, his head resting against his hand, as he watched give her interview, chuckling at how awkward she was while up there. For the next couple of days after arriving to Republic City, Korra found herself settling into Air Temple Island, though the young avatar wondered how much settling she could do when most of her personal belongings were being kept at the South Pole and Tenzin had confided her to the island. It didn't help that Tenzin was unable to begin her airbending training during that time, as he settled some matters with the council about her arrival to Republic City, putting it off until things were resolved. The one saving grace, Korra felt, was that meant that she got to spend some time hanging out with Naruto. The yellow-haired airbender would regale Korra with some of the sights that Republic City had to offer, though Korra felt it was its own kind of torture, seeing as she couldn't visit the places Naruto talked about herself. She did enjoy the occasional light sparring matches with him, Naruto giving her a real challenge because of the evasion tactics followed by some quick strikes that he would employ. She did have a tendency to win the matches, but that was because she ultimately ended up using all the elements at her disposal, though Korra also noted that Naruto's airbending tattoos never lit up during their spars, making her wonder how serious he was taking her. All in all, while the last couple of days had been uneventful for Korra, they were enjoyable. But now the waiting had ended, as the promised day that Tenzin said that he would start her airbending training had arrived, and Korra was so excited that she was up at the crack of dawn ready to begin. Well, a little before breakfast. Mornings and her weren't friends after all. She met with Tenzin in the dining hall where she usually ate breakfast amongst the air acolytes, though lunch and dinner were usually spent with Tenzin and his family, and was finishing up breakfast while reading the morning paper. And in the final round, the Buzzard Wasps won with a decisive knockout. Korra read excitedly before lowering the paper to gaze at Tenzin, her eyes shining brightly. What do you say we go to the arena tonight, catch a few pro bending matches? Korra asked, hopefully eager to watch her first match of the bending sport. Naruto can come with us, she added, wanting to share the experience with her friend. Where is he? Korra wondered, not having seen Naruto that morning yet. Tenzin watched Korra carefully for a second, making a note of how the young avatar seemed to brighten all the more once she mentioned Naruto's name, though he doubted she even realized it herself, before addressing her question as he let out an aggravated sigh. That sport is a mockery of the noble tradition of bending, the man claimed adamantly. Korra could feel her excitement plummet at Tenzin's proclamation. Come on, Tenzin, Korra pleaded. I've dreamed about seeing a pro bending match since I was a kid, and now I'm just a ferry ride away from the arena. She finished as she turned slightly, being able to see the arena not so far off in the distance. Korra almost let out a wistful sigh at the knowledge that one of her dreams would go unfulfilled for a while longer. Don't listen to him, Korra, Naruto said as he took a seat beside Tenzin across from Korra. My old man is kind of biased when it comes to pro-bending. There are a lot of lonely days when you're the only airbender growing up while pro-bending is getting popular. The whiskered teen claimed, looking at his father out of the corner of his eyes with a grin. Korra nodded her head in understanding. Okay, that makes sense, the brunette stated in realization. Where have you been? She asked him. Just getting everything ready, Naruto replied simply. Okay, Korra said slowly, not getting an answer she was expecting. Tenzin directed an annoyed look at his son, not denying the accusation of being biased or confirming it, before sighing in indignation before addressing his student. Korra, you're not here to watch that drivel, you're here to finish your avatar training. So, for the time being, I want you to remain on the island, he told her. Korra slumped over slightly with a frown on her face. Is that why you're keeping the White Lotus sentries around, to watch my every move? She asked her airbending master, gesturing to the sentries positioned around the room. Yes, Tenzin replied, not even attempting to deny his reasons or motives. In order to learn airbending, I believe you require a calm, quiet environment, free from any distractions, he claimed. Yeah, nothing less distracting or calming than having a bunch of people watch your every move, Naruto said sarcastically. What Tenzin didn't want to acknowledge was the slight tension that permeated the room, felt by nearly everyone. This is for the best, Naruto, Tenzin told his son. While the situation might not be ideal, for the sake of Korra's safety and give her the best learning environment possible, this is necessary, the airbending master insisted. I can take care of myself, you know. I am the Avatar, Korra told Tenzin, even as she resigned herself, seeing that Tenzin wasn't changing his mind about the sentries. It was only a small comfort knowing that Tenzin was doing it for her sake, and wasn't entirely happy with the circumstances either. All right, you're the master, Korra muttered. Good, Tenzin nodded, glad that he wasn't having to argue with them. Really, teenagers? The man grouched internally. Naruto, why don't you go ahead and head towards the gates and await Korra and I's arrival? Tenzin instructed. Got it, Naruto replied with a salute. Gates? Korra questioned, looking between Tenzin and Naruto's retreating form in confusion. Oh, those gates, Korra muttered once she and Tenzin arrived at the training ground, as she eyed the cluster of wooden gates warily. In the time between Tenzin and Korra walking from the dining area and the training ground, Tenzin had Korra stop to change into the traditional airbending robes. Nice clothes, Korra, Naruto teased the avatar with a wide grin, as he tried not to laugh at her appearance. Korra scrunched up her face as she crossed her arms in front of her. Yeah, well. She tried to come up with something, only to then realize that he, unlike the rest of his family, wasn't wearing the standard airbending robes. Hey, why don't you have to wear this? She asked, gesturing down to her clothing. Naruto continued to grin foxily at Korra. My old man lost a bet to me, he answered. What now? Korra asked, head tilted and eyebrow raised. Tenzin was the one to respond in Naruto's place. Naruto and I made a bet and I lost, the airbending master said hurriedly. Let this be a lesson to you, Korra. Never bet against Naruto, because he has unbelievable luck and somehow always ends up winning any bet he is a part of, Tenzin stated sagely. Now let's focus on today's training, he finished. The news seemed to excite the airbending children as they reacted to the news differently, except Jinora, who just stood at attention, Milo waving happily while Ikki jumped up and down. Korra's gonna airbend, Korra's gonna airbend, Ikki cheered. What is that contraption? Korra asked dubiously. A time-honored tool that teaches the most fundamental aspect of airbending, Tenzin replied, and Naruto could almost imagine his father stroking his beard as he did so, forcing him to stifle a chuckle at the mental image. Jinora, would you like to explain this exercise? Tenzin asked of his oldest daughter, purposely ignoring how his oldest was on the point of bursting out laughing. Jinora nodded as she stepped purposely towards the gates. The goal is to weave your way through the gates and make it to the other side without touching them, the young airbender explained. Korra nodded her head in understanding with a smile. Seems easy enough, she stated confidently. Ikki was quick to burst Korra's bubble. Jinora forgot to say you have to make it through while the gates are spinning. Ikki got out quickly. Tenzin at that point stepped forward and unleashed a blast of air at the gates, causing them to start spinning. In the same motion, the airbending master brought out a leaf that he had picked up earlier and held it out to the gates, letting it get carried away by the wind, watching it flow gently through the gates. The key is to be like the leaf, Tenzin began to explain to Korra. Flow with the movement of the gates. Jinora will demonstrate. At her father's signal, Jinora nimbly entered the spinning gates, walking in a circle-like pattern around the gates, avoiding them easily, as Tenzin continued his explanation. Airbending is all about spiral movements. When you meet resistance, you must be able to switch direction at a moment's notice. Tenzin finished. A minute later, the young airbender walked out the other side of the gates without having hit a single one. Once she was on the other side, Jinora shot another blast of wind at the gates, causing them to start spinning at full speed once more. Korra looked at the gates for a moment before getting a determined look in her eyes. Let's do this, she said before running straight at the gates. Sadly, for the Avatar, all her enthusiasm was for naught as she almost instantly slammed into the first gate before ricocheting into another. Tenzin and Naruto went simultaneously, as Korra hit another gate and proceeded to fall into a panic, subsequently hitting more gates. Eventually the brunette was launched out of the spinning gates and landed on her but where she had started. Picking herself up with a groan, Korra glared at the gates before running back in. She just got through the first couple of gates before Korra once more found herself being bounced around the gates. Don't force your way through, Jinora shouted, trying to help the Avatar, only to flinch slightly when Korra hit another wooden panel. Dance, dance like the wind, Ikki supplied. Be the leaf, Milo added in, waving his arms up and down. Naruto laughed lightly at his sibling's helpful advice before he decided to get in on the action. Spiral, spiral, the blonde bender called out, trying to keep himself from outright laughing. The outcome was Korra stumbling out of the gate area looking like she had been up all night and was half drunk. Korra only ended up taking a couple of steps out of the gates before she ended up on her back in front of Naruto and the others. Tenzin, seeing the state of his student, and how his youngest children started to poke the passed-out Avatar with a stick, could only shake his head helplessly. This is not going to be easy, Tenzin thought. This is going to take a while, Naruto voiced out, unknowingly echoing his father's thoughts, as he gazed down at Korra with a wide grin. That night Korra found herself practicing her airbending by herself, trying to generate even the tiniest gust of wind at a newspaper that she had hung up on a line with Chief Bifeng's picture on it. Airbend, Korra said, thrusting her hands out only for nothing to happen. What is wrong with me? Korra demanded of herself as she tried once more. Airbend, she said, as if trying to force the event to happen only to produce no results once more. With a growl of anger, Korra lets out all of frustration by shooting a ball of fire at the newspaper, turning it to ash. With a sigh, Korra turned her attention away from the ashes to Naga, who had been lying lazily behind her owner. Maybe I'm just not cut out to be an airbender, huh, Naga? Korra asked her companion. You know Republic City wasn't built in a day, Naruto commented, having witnessed display seconds before. Naruto, Korra said, a bit surprised. What are you doing here? She asked him. Just seeing how you were doing, Naruto replied honestly. Something you want to get off your chest? He asked, gesturing to the small pile of ash. The Avatar blinked a couple of times before answering. No, Korra replied as innocently as possible. It's okay, you know, Naruto told her. I have a training dummy of a teacher of mine up in my room that I like to practice on. Really? Korra asked, sounding a little surprised before shaking off the info, figuring she could be honest with Naruto, as she let out another frustrated sigh. I don't know, All the other elements came so easy to me. She told him a little depressingly. I don't understand why this is so hard for me. Relax, Korra. Naruto tried to calm the girl with an easy smile, coming up with an idea. I'll help you with your training, he promised her. I actually think I know a way to help you through the gates, the blonde airbender told her. Korra's eyes shined brightly at Naruto's claim. Those gates had been a nuisance and a pain for Korra all afternoon, never managing more than a few seconds in the gate area before being tossed out. Really? She asked him excitedly, getting as close to Naruto as possible. Really? Naruto confirmed. The two suddenly heard the voice of a radio announcer being carried through the air, catching their attention, mostly Korra's. They tracked the sound of the radio coming a guard shack and decided to listen in on the announcer reporting on a pro-bending match. The two sat on top of the shack listening intently as the game progressed, getting engrossed in the commentary only to be devastated when it suddenly cut out. Korra, come down here, please. Tenzin's voice demanded within the shack. Korra flipped herself into the shack, Naruto choosing to stay on the roof only to force down a second later. You too, Naruto. Tenzin called for his son. You shut it off at the best part. Korra complained, not at all happy that the closest thing she got to watching a pro-bending was interrupted. Tenzin glared at the pair of teens uncaringly. I thought I made myself clear. I don't want you listening to this distracting nonsense, Korra. Tenzin told his student before turning his attention to his son. Naruto, you know very well my opinion about that sport. I would expect that at the very least you would respect my decision on the matter, he said disapprovingly. Technically, Naruto began with a raised finger. You only said that Korra couldn't watch a match, not listen to one, the younger airbender pointed out. Besides, it's their radio, Korra added, pointing toward the White Lotus sentries, who were looking rather sheepish. Tenzin looked between the two teens, trying to come up a retort to what they clearly pointed out. You, Tenzin spluttered. You two know what I meant, he growled out. Anyway, shouldn't you both be in bed by now? The airbending master questioned before turning around in a huff and leaving in a hurry, releasing a gust of wind behind him as he snapped his cape. The two watched Tenzin leave before turning toward each other and bursting out in laughter seconds later at the state they had left the airbending master in. After a moment of trying to get themselves back under control, Naruto and Korra managed to rein back their laughter. Come on, Naruto said between the last few chuckles, as he began to lead Korra away from the guard post. Where are we going? Korra asked with a raised eyebrow before following Naruto anyway. To see if my idea has any merit, Naruto replied. Naruto led Korra back to the spinning gates. Korra looked at the gates warily before addressing Naruto. So what's this idea of yours? She asked him. Just to help you get through to the other side, Naruto answered easily. Okay, but how? Korra continued to question. In case you didn't notice, I didn't exactly do all that well this afternoon, the brunette avatar pointed out. The blonde airbender grinned at Korra as he held his hand out to her. I'll show you how, Naruto said. Do you know how to dance? He asked. Not really, why? Korra replied, taking Naruto's hand in hers. Then stay close and follow my lead, Naruto told her. With one quick thrust of his free hand, Naruto sent a gust of wind at the gates, causing them to spin. In the next instant, the airbender pulled Korra close. Before Korra knew what was happening, Naruto had stepped into the gates with her. Hey! Korra protested, closing eyes shut, expecting to hit a gate while practically clinging to Naruto, only to get pulled along with him. A few seconds later, all Korra felt was Naruto spinning them around and the sensation of her ponytail swishing through the air as something passed close to her. Carefully opening her eyes, Korra realized that Naruto was leading her through the gates, both of them barely missing being hit by the gates. Eventually, Naruto pulled Korra out of the gates on the other side, the pair having hit a couple of the gates, but not nearly as many as Korra had hit earlier in the day. What? How? This exercise is about spiral movements, Naruto reiterated his father's words from earlier that day. Kind of like dancing. If you can get used to how it feels while we're dancing, then it should come easier to you when you do it alone. Naruto theorized. The first test run was mostly a success. Hitting a few gates could be excused since the space between the gates wasn't meant for two people at the same time. Now it was just of a matter of seeing if it produced results when Korra did the exercise by herself. Korra nodded her head in understanding. The young avatar was still overjoyed by the simple fact that she had finally made it through the gates, even if it was just because Naruto was helping her through it. With her eyes shining brightly in happiness, Korra turned to Naruto. "Can we go again?" she asked. And so, for the next couple of hours, Naruto and Korra danced between the spinning gates beneath the moonlight. The next morning, the Airbending family and Korra were in a small pavilion near the cliffside meditating. At least Korra was trying hard to meditate. At the moment, Korra wasn't having any luck with it, not to mention that she was a little distracted. While she, Tenzin, and his youngest children were within the pavilion, Naruto was above the pavilion, balanced perfectly on a slab of rock. Korra had been dumbfounded when she first saw the slab on top of the pavilion, and was even more so when Naruto landed on it, the thing not even moving a fraction of an inch, and proceeded to meditate on it. Now, after several minutes of absolutely nothing, Korra was completely bored. Korra peeks at the others before trying once more to meditate, but after a second she gives up. "I think I'm doing it wrong," Korra admitted to Tenzin, who sat across from her, as she let out a heavy sigh. Tenzin took a deep breath before opening his eyes. "There's nothing to do," he told her almost exasperatedly. "Let your mind and your spirit be free, for air is the element of freedom." Tenzin lectured, trying to impart some wisdom to his charge. Korra in response laughed at the wisdom and advice that Tenzin tried to give her. "Is something funny?" the airbending master questioned his student. "Yeah," Korra replied crossly. "You're telling me to embrace freedom, but you won't even let me listen to the radio. And forget about leaving this island," Korra stated, letting her frustration show in her voice. "You know Korra's right." Naruto's voice suddenly came from above. The blonde airbender flipped off the slab, his actions causing the rock slab to slide forward off the pavilion and over the cliff side, and landed in front of the entrance to the pavilion. "She needs to experience freedom if she is ever going to learn how to airbend," Naruto claimed. "That's nonsense," Tenzin refuted. "If Korra follows my instructions, she'll master airbending soon enough," Tenzin stated confidently. "All she needs is some time and patience." "Yeah, well," Korra started. "Considering how these last 2 days have been going, I think I'll try Naruto's idea," the avatar said as she stood up. "Please, Korra," Tenzin pleaded, trying to change Korra's mind. "Look at Milo, he is able to meditate peacefully," he said, trying to raise the young woman's spirits to try and get her to meditate once more. Korra stared down at the youngest airbender before noticing how Milo's head seemed to be bopping up and down, the snot bubble, and the way drool was leaking from his mouth. "Actually, I think he's asleep," she observed. "What?" Tenzin gasped, surprised before taking a closer look at his youngest son and seeing that Korra was right. "Well," Tenzin began. "At least he has the relaxing part down," he defended lamely before addressing Korra once more. "I know you're frustrated, but these teachings will sink in over time. Then one day they'll just click," Tenzin said, trying to reassure Korra. "Yeah, but it's not sinking in yet," Korra replied with a shake of her head. Korra walked over to Naruto while calling back to the others. "I'm going to be with Naruto. Maybe get myself a glass of lychee juice first," Korra added in as an afterthought, as the pair walked away. "Where are we going?" they could hear Korra asking. "First, I am going to introduce you to someone," Naruto could be heard answering. "Korra," Tenzin shouted after his student. "The meditation's not over yet," he protested, only not to receive an answer back. Ikki came out of meditation pose as she looked at her father hopefully. "Daddy, can I have some lychee justice too?" Ikki asked, clasping her hands in front of herself cutely. "No," Tenzin answered blandly. "Sure," Naruto's voice called back, causing Ikki to cheer happily. Me too, please, Jinora added, and once she realized her older brother was getting them juice. The noise caused by siblings inadvertently woke Milo from his sleep, causing him to fall over. Tenzin looked at the scene with a blank expression on his face. Korra followed Naruto curiously as he led her to the stables that housed the flying bison. So who am I meeting? Korra questioned her friend. Though considering where they were, Korra at least had an idea of who, or what, she would be meeting. Korra turned out to be right when Naruto stopped in front of a flying bison that was just a little smaller than Ugi, Tenzin's flying bison. This, Naruto began patting the flying bison that was standing beside him. Is Yuzu. He introduced his friend. Yuzu, the airbender, continued. This is Korra. Say hello, Yuzu. Naruto instructed. The flying bison lumbered forward towards Korra. Once Yuzu reached Korra, the bison gave the avatar a big lick, managing to pick the girl up off her feet for a few seconds before she fell back. Korra laughed heartedly as the bison licked her, far too used to the licks she received from Naga to bother by the drool from the bison. With a simple gesture, Korra wiped the drool off of herself. It's nice to meet you, to Yuzu, Korra said, patting the sky bison's head. A gesture that Yuzu seemed to appreciate as it leaned his head into Korra's hand. So what do you have planned this time? Korra asked Naruto interestedly. A few minutes later, Yuzu floated high above Air Temple Island with Naruto and Korra on his back. Korra looked around, taking in the wide expanse of water far below them and Republic City in the distance. The night she arrived, Korra had seen the city by night as she was being taken to Air Temple Island and thought it beautiful. Now she was simply amazed by the city. So what are we doing up here? Korra asked, tearing her gaze away from to look at Naruto curiously, as he tied his scarf around one of Yuzu's horns. And what is that? She questioned, gesturing towards the staff that Naruto was holding. The item in question was a black staff that was as long as Naruto was tall. The top end was circular with rings attached to it, and the bottom end was shaped into a crescent-like moon. Naruto grinned foxily at Korra as he answered her. To have a bit of fun, he told her, answering her first question before continuing with her second. And this is my glider. Naruto finished, spinning his staff before sending a bit of air through it, opening the glider wings and then closing them. Naruto then tossed it at Korra, letting the avatar hold it. Korra fumbled a bit with the staff before getting a firm hold of it. Once she was holding it, Korra stared at the staff curiously as she swung it around a bit. Korra found it surprisingly light, though she figured if it was heavy it wouldn't serve much of a purpose as a glider. Taking a closer look at it, Korra could also see some other minuscule details about it. Why is it shaped like this? Korra questioned Naruto, handing the glider back to him, indicating at the two ends of the staff. She had never seen another glider belonging to the other members of Naruto's family looking quite like it before. Naruto gazed at his glider for a moment before answering. I asked for it to be made like this. Naruto admitted, I think I saw it in a dream once, but I can't really remember. It's the same with how I meditate, he said as he tried to remember the dreams, but as always it was only a vague, foggy memory. Naruto shook his head as he refocused himself on the here and now. Anyway, ready to find out why we came up here? Naruto questioned the avatar. Yup, Korra replied with a smile, nodding her head. So what do you have planned for me this time? Besides appreciating the help that Naruto was giving her with the gates, Korra had to admit that she had fun dancing with him. Even if what they had been doing was technically training and not dancing. Like my dad said, air is the element of freedom. Naruto began, imitating his father at the end and causing Korra to laugh Naruto as well, and then continued. So someone should be able to experience that sensation of freedom and appreciate it to get a better understanding of airbending. Naruto said wisely as he held his hand out to Korra, which the brunette instinctively took. That's why we're jumping. Korra's eyes shot wide open. Wait, what? Korra shouted even as Naruto pulled them over Yuzu's side. With her eyes clenched shut, Korra screamed at the top of her lungs for the first few seconds that the duo fell. But the sound of Naruto's laughter from beside her eventually caused Korra to open her eyes and look at him. Are you insane? Korra demanded of Naruto. Relax, with our bending we'll be fine, Naruto told her, having to shout a little to be heard over the roaring wind. Just let go, he said, using his staff to spin the pair around each other. Naruto held his arms out wide, just enjoying the feeling of having the air rushing by him. Korra tried to relax herself, at least managing to stop herself from screaming wildly, but still remained tense as she focused her gaze as best as she could to nearing water far below them. Naruto drew close to Korra. Relax, Naruto said gently, almost whispering into her ear if he could. Close your eyes and let go, the blonde airbender instructed before pulling back, directing a gentle smile at Korra. Korra stared at Naruto's smiling form for a second before, with some trepidation, Korra closed her eyes, even as she felt Naruto pull her hair out its usual ponytail and draw away completely. It took some effort, but Korra slowly found herself slowly relaxing as everything, all her worries about mastering airbending, seemed to fall away. All Korra felt was the wind rushing by her, through her hair, and Naruto's presence close by. After a few seconds, Korra opened her eyes and smiled back at Naruto, a happy look in her eyes. Once they were closer to the surface of water, Naruto spread his glider's wings and grabbed Korra, using his airbending to slow their descent before they hit the water's surface. Korra used her waterbending to form a small iceberg that they could stand on, as Yuzu flew down towards them. Okay, Korra started after catching her breath as she composed herself. I have to admit that was pretty awesome, Korra admitted with a plastered across her face. You know, after getting past the mortal terror of falling to my death. Yup, Naruto agreed with her, completely ignoring the second part of Korra's sentence. It actually gets more fun after the first time, the blonde airbender told her. So want to go again? He asked. Definitely, Korra replied. While Korra couldn't claim that Naruto's ideas were predictable, they definitely turned out to be fun. Let's go, Korra said, taking Naruto's hand and leading him onto Yuzu, who had landed in the water near them. Later that night, after a few hours of training with Tenzin, Korra opened a window of where she was staying, watching as a White Lotus sentry passed by. Despite Tenzin's insistence of Korra not letting herself be distracted by the sport, Korra had already decided that she wasn't going to miss her first pro bending match for anything in the world. Jumping out of the window, Korra landed silently on the ground before making a break for it. Without the least bit hesitance, the young avatar jumped off a cliff and into the bay, using her waterbending to bend her water into a funnel to catch her. Once she was underwater, Korra proceeded to swim towards the pro-bending arena, unaware that she was being followed from the sky. Korra eventually emerged from under the water next to pro-bending arena. A smile graced Korra's face when she noticed that a window had been left open far above her. Using her waterbending, Korra propelled herself up and through the window, landing lightly on the other side, before waterbending the water off of herself in a twirl. Not bad, a voice Korra recognized said from behind her, startling the young avatar. Spinning around, Korra spotted Naruto leaning against the wall, his staff resting on his shoulder, as he wiped some of the water that Korra had waterbended off his face. Naruto, Korra said in surprise. What are you doing here? She asked, a little nervousness entering her voice. Keeping an eye on you, Naruto replied, having followed Korra from the sky with his glider and flown through the window just before the avatar had arrived. You're not going to tell Tenzin about this, are you? Korra inquired tentatively. Of course not, Naruto replied reassuringly. I've done this lots of times, he told her with a grin. Really? Korra mused, not as surprised as she probably should be, considering Chief Bifong's insinuations that Naruto got into trouble on a regular basis. Well, come on then. Let's check this place out, Korra insisted as she began to explore with Naruto following her. The first room that they came across was a large, spacious room. The room seemed to be a gym with training equipment scattered about, along with some earth discs and nets. Korra smiled as she took it all in, imaging using some of the equipment herself as she prepared for a match. Naruto watched Korra with a smile of his own at the happy and eager look on Korra's face as she turned her head in every which way as she took it all in. While it wasn't likely, Naruto thought that the trouble that they could get into if his father found out about their excursion was well worth it in exchange for the happiness that Korra was emanating. Hey! A voice from behind them shouted, startling the two teens and causing them to turn around. What are you? Oh, it's you. The man, an older gentleman with white hair pulled back into a ponytail and large sideburns, started rather forcefully near the beginning only to deflate near the end once he spotted Naruto. The man wore earthbender clothing with a towel around his neck and arms bandaged. Korra started. We were just, she began to give their excuse only to be caught off by the man. Save it, the man stated. If you're with him. He began pointing at Naruto. Then I'm not even going to waste my time, the man said as he turned his back on them. Korra looked at Naruto curiously, wondering what the story was there. Naruto stared back at Korra before shrugging his shoulders. What, I told you I've done this before, he said, answering Korra's unasked question. With all the times that Naruto had managed to sneak himself into the arena, he had never been caught, only ever leading the personnel in a long chase throughout the building. Eventually they just gave up trying to keep the airbender out. By that point Naruto had started to sneak his siblings into the arena, a secret that they all obviously kept from their father. Pema even joined them once or twice. There you are. A young man, with short black hair brushed into a ducktail style, green eyes, and dressed in pro-bending equipment, said, rushing towards the group, his gaze fixed on Korra. It's all right, Toza, he began to say, but Toza stopped him. Yeah, whatever, kid, Toza said grumpily. They're your responsibility. I've got work to do, he said, walking away, using his earthbending to lift and throw a dumbbell around the room. Them? The teen repeated, confused, before he finally took note of Naruto's presence. Oh, she's with someone, he muttered quietly in disappointment, but quickly recovered from it. Anyway, if you'll come right this way, Mississippi, sir, I'll give you the grand tour, the young man promised. The teen lead Naruto and Korra into the locker room that revealed the playing field, an entire side of the wall missing to reveal the field and offer a great view. What do you think? Best seats in the house, huh? The teen asked, mostly interested in Korra's response. Korra looks out in awe, walking to the very edge of the locker room and resting her hands on the handrail. Whoa! Unbelievable! This place is even more amazing than I imagined, Korra said distractedly. Naruto nodded his head in agreement with Korra. Even with all the times that he had snuck into the arena, he had never seen a match from a better viewpoint. Behind the three of them, another couple of people entered the locker room dressed in the same red pro-bending uniform as the black-haired teen. Name's Bolan, by the way, Bolan introduced to himself. Korra replies absently, much too busy looking around, so she didn't have her focus completely on Bolan. Naruto finished the introductions. Bolan. From off to the side, one of the people who walked in whispers Bolan's name, trying to get his attention. Bolan made his way towards the person unbothered, sparing Korra a quick glance. Yeah? He asked. I told you, the teen with black hair and orange-colored eyes. You have to stop bringing in your crazy fangirls in here before the matches. This one isn't even alone. Get them out of here, he instructed firmly, briefly eyeing Naruto's staff, as he finished putting on the last of his gear. Ah, come on, Mako, Bolan complained. Alright, look, I kinda promised that they could stay, he started off. Besides, I don't think that they're an item, in the couple of minutes I've known them, Bolan said rather lamely at the end, and then quickly recovering. But man, I've got a good feeling there's something special about her. I know it, he reasoned, trying to get Mako to change his mind. Is something wrong? Korra asked, walking over to the pair with Naruto beside her. Not at all, Bolan replied, urging Korra closer before turning back to Mako. Everything will be fine if she's with me, right? Yeah, I'm with him, Korra agreed, suddenly worried that they might get thrown out and she'd end up missing the match. So, you see, we're together, Bolan told Mako eagerly. Korra looked at Bolan out of the corner of her eye, a slightly guarded expression on her face. Well, not together, she refuted charily. More like friends, she explained definitively. Bolan immediately backtracked, mortified and trying to ease the situation. Right, friends. Bolan agreed hastily. No, I didn't mean to imply, he said, trying to defend himself. Oh, you implied it? Korra accused him. Naruto was snickering at the byplay only once Korra elbowed him in the stomach. Anyway, Bolan continued, trying to maintain some sense of poise. I want you both to meet my brother Mako, he said, introducing his brother to the pair. Korra's previous accusing expression suddenly changed as Mako's name registered in her mind. Mako? Korra repeated, sounding impressed. Wow, we heard you play on the radio, she said, holding out her hand for him to shake before turning towards Naruto. Remember last night on the radio? The avatar told him before refocusing back on Mako, waiting for him to respond. Mako in response completely brushed Korra off without saying a word to her. Come on, Bolan, we're up, he told his brother, putting on his helmet. Or I could meet him later, Korra muttered, withdrawing her hand. Yeah, sorry about that, Bolan apologized. My brother just gets real focused before the match. He did best to explain, but it came out sounding like a very obvious lie in Korra and Naruto's ears. Okay, I've gotta go, Bolan said, hastily rushing to catch up with his brother and their other teammate. Wish me luck. Not that I'll need it, Bolan called back confidently. Naruto and Korra laugh at Bolan's confidence. Good luck, Korra said. Knock him out, she finished by throwing a punch in the air. Kick ass, Naruto cheered his new friend on. For the next several minutes, Naruto and Korra watched the match between the Fire Ferrets, the team that Mako and Bolan were a part of, and the Golden Temple Tigardillos. At the beginning, the match seemed to be very one-sided and not in favor of the Fire Ferrets, as they seemed to lose ground quickly to their opponents. At one point of the match, Korra was pulling at her hair, nearly tearing it out, as she watched Bolan and the last member of the Fire Ferrets, a waterbender named Hasuke, get knocked over the edge of the ring and into the water below. Despite the odds being against him, Mako managed to keep his cool, dodging all three of his opponent's strikes. Eventually, the Tigardillos grew tired, as evident as their strikes started to slow down, providing Mako the opportunity to retaliate. Mako first sent a quick blast of fire at the waterbender of the opposing team, knocking him out with that single hit. Following that, Mako let loose a barrage of fire attacks at his two opponents, which eventually resulted in the firebender Tigardillo being blasted out of the ring. Finally, it came down to Mako and the earthbender Tigardillo, the two trading blows that resulted in a cloud of dust being thrown up because of the earth discs that were destroyed by Mako's fire blasts. Through the dust, Mako got in a hit that sent Earthbender all the way to edge of his side of the ring. The Earthbender barely recovered and managed to raise an earth disc when Mako was already on him, hitting him with a single fire blast that knocked him over the edge. The crowd erupted into cheers at the victory of the Fire Ferrets, Mako even taking a moment to appreciate the cheers he was receiving. Naruto and Korra got swept up in the excitement of the Fire Ferrets' victory as they embraced each other in their exhilaration, Naruto lifting Korra off her feet and spinning her around a couple of times, as they laughed merrily together. After Naruto put her back down, Korra pulled back, but not breaking their hug, and gazed at Naruto's smiling face and briefly getting entranced by Naruto's sapphire blue eyes. The moment didn't last long, as soon enough Bolan rejoined them in the locker room, whooping in excitement. Woohoo, yes! Bolan shouted loudly. One more win and we're in the championship tournament, he stated before catching his breath and calming down. So, what did you think, Korra? The earthbender asked coolly as he took off his helmet. Bolan's got some moves, huh? Korra took Bolan by the shoulders and started to shake him a little roughly. What did I think? What did I think? She asked rhetorically. That was amazing, the avatar declared before shoving the black-haired youth, her strength causing Bolan stagger back a few steps. Naruto caught the earthbender before he ended up walking back all the way across the room. You guys were awesome, Naruto agreed, slapping Bolan on the back and causing Bolan to stagger forward. Yeah, awesome, Bolan muttered, a little dumbfounded at the strength the two benders possessed. Before anything else could be said, the trio heard the tail end of an argument that was happening between Mako and Sasuke as they drew closer from the arena. Mako was glaring at his teammate, but the waterbender was hardly paying any attention to him as he tried to ignore Mako as best he could. "You did more harm than good out there," Mako told his teammate angrily. "You almost cost us the match." "We won, didn't we?" Sasuke retorted, finally getting tired of Mako's pestering. "Barely," Mako replied shortly. Sasuke glared at Mako. "Get off my case, pal," the waterbender said with a growl as he threw his helmet to the floor before walking off. "Useless," Mako muttered, glaring at his retreating teammate, but instead of chasing after him, the firebender decided to take off the last of his equipment. Having seen the entire confrontation, Korra walked up to Mako with a small encouraging smile on her face as she tried to lift his spirits. "You guys were incredible out there. Especially you, Mr. Hat Trick." She complimented him good-naturedly. "Oh, you're still here?" Mako said disinterestedly as he didn't even bother to look up at Korra. Korra frowned at Mako's attitude. "Oh, you're still a jerk?" she returned before she returned her attention back to Bolan. "Anyway," Korra began as she perked up a bit, "I've been immersed in bending my entire life, but I never learned how to move like that. It's like there's a whole new style here. Think you could show me a few tricks?" Korra asked hopefully. Bolan responded instantly, more than happy for any excuse that allowed him to spend more time with Korra. "Absolutely," he stated. Hearing his brother's response, Mako couldn't help but let out a heavy sigh. "Right now? Come on, Bolan." "Just ignore him," Bolan told Korra, waving his brother off. "Gladly," Naruto replied with a foxy grin, with Korra nodding her head in agreement. Bolan almost found himself laughing at Naruto's response, but the look directed at him from Mako stifled his laughter. "Yeah," Bolan began once he was sure he wouldn't start laughing. "I could show you the basics. I'm just not sure how my earthbending would translate to your waterbending. But we'll figure it out," Bolan promised thoughtfully. Korra sent a knowing smile at Naruto as she crossed her arms in front of herself. "Won't be a problem," she stated confidently. "I'm actually an earthbender," she revealed partially. Bolan, surprised by the information, starts to apologize awkwardly and feeling rather embarrassed. "I'm sorry, no. I didn't mean to assume," he said hurriedly. "'Cause I was just figuring, with your water tribe getup, that you are a water tribe, gal," Bolan finished awkwardly. "No, you're right, I'm a waterbender," Korra reassured Bolan, barely managing to keep her composure. "And a firebender. Still can't airbend though," Naruto teased her. "Hey, I'll figure it out," Korra defended herself. "Eventually," she finished softly. Bolan looked between Naruto and Korra with a befuddled look on his face. "HM. I'm very confused right now," he said honestly, not being able to make any sense of what was going on. Things though seemed to click for Mako as he suddenly dropped his head with his eyes closed. "You're the Avatar," Mako realized with another sigh. "And I'm an idiot," he finished. A smirk spread across Korra's face. "Both are true," the Avatar confirmed and agreed. After the attitude she had been getting from Mako since they met, Korra was happy to get even minimalist shots and at his expense. Bolan's face changed from one exaggerated expression to another as his gaze shifted between his brother and Korra repeatedly. "No way," Bolan struggled to get out before pointing at Korra. "The Avatar!" he shouted in surprise. The quartet moved to the gym where Bolan showed Korra the basics of the style he used during his pro bending matches. Korra had to adjust her own style a bit, having only ever learned the traditional style of earthbending, but she proved how talented she was at bending when she quickly picked up what Bolan was showing her. Naruto added in his own input with a few moves an airbender might use. "Alright, nice job, Korra," Bolan praised, wiping away a bead of sweat from his brow. "You're a natural at this. At this rate we could make you a real pro bender in no time." Naruto added in from where he was leaning against a nearby wall. You think? Korra asked hopefully, the smile she wore stretching wider when Naruto nodded his head in confirmation and Bolan added in his own support. Not bad. Mako added in offhandedly. Korra deflated a bit at Mako's compliment. What's it take to impress this guy? She muttered. I don't know, Naruto said before suddenly running up to the firebender, the wind rushing around them slightly when the blonde came to a stop, and looked at Mako intently. Having Naruto suddenly appear in front of him caused Mako to lean away from the airbender, and almost take a step back away from him. I think he actually meant that as a compliment, Naruto claimed before finally putting some space between them, even if it wasn't a very good one. Mako rolled his eyes before shaking his head exasperatedly. You know what, it's getting late. I think I'm gonna turn in. You kids have fun, Mako told them as he began to walk away, pausing just long enough to look back at Korra. Nice to meet you, Avatar Korra, he said with some sincerity in his voice before looking over at Naruto. Naruto, the firebender added in, getting a wave back from the airbender. Yeah, been a real pleasure, Korra said sarcastically. Mako ignored the sarcasm in Korra's voice as he addressed his brother one last time before he left the room. See you upstairs, bro. Upstairs? You guys live here? Korra asked curiously once she registered what Mako had said. Yup. In the attic, Bolan replied. It's nothing fancy, but we have some great views, he told them before shaking the subject. So, back to bending, why don't we throw that combo one more time? The earthbender suggested. Later that night, Korra and Naruto had returned to Air Temple Island after finishing their impromptu training session with Bolan. The two were being careful as they made their way home, not wanting to be caught by the White Lotus sentries, or worse, by Tenzin himself. Hey Naruto, Korra spoke up softly, drawing the airbender's attention to herself. I want to say thank you again for not telling Tenzin I snuck out tonight, she said, laughing awkwardly a bit. Naruto jostled his glider a bit, causing the rings to chime, as he gave Korra an easygoing smile. Don't worry about it, Korra, he assured her. Naruto understood Korra's desire to get away for a bit. His father could be very demanding at times and unrelenting. His expectations of Naruto when it came to being an airbender causing them to argue more than once. It's not just that, Korra insisted. I also wanted to say thank you for going to watch my first pro bending match with me. I don't think I'm ever going to forget tonight, and it was even better than I ever imagined because I got to share the experience with a friend, she told him honestly. Then I'm glad I was able to share it with you, the airbender sincerely stated as he looked at Korra. Tonight was definitively fun, Naruto agreed with a nod of his head. We'll have to do it again tomorrow night. We have to cheer Mako and Bolan during their match after all, Naruto said, holding his fist out towards Korra. Korra grinned back at Naruto. Hell yeah! She agreed, bumping fists with the blonde. Naruto let out a loud yawn before continuing on walking. We should get to bed, we have a full day tomorrow, he advised. The next day, Korra was once more trying to make her way through the gates on her own. With the help that Naruto had given her, the Avatar managed to at least make it through the first few gates and last a few seconds in the thick of it. Unfortunately, Korra would eventually end up hitting one of the gates and things would spiral from there as she grew panicked and started to rush things, only causing her to make more mistakes, ending with her becoming more frazzled with some hair sticking out. It didn't help that Korra was partially distracted because Naruto hadn't been there all morning and the help that Tenzin was giving her wasn't all that helpful, as it only added to her frustration. Korra exhaled heavily before rushing towards the gates, spiraling around the first but running straight into the second. As she was bouncing around, Korra missed the fact that Naruto had arrived and was now standing next to his family watching her progress. How is she doing? Naruto asked curiously, though the answer seemed to be rather obvious. Tenzin sighed before greeting his son and answering his question. Korra was doing fine at the beginning but has only gotten worse since then, Tenzin answered as he looked at Korra's progress with mixed emotions. He was a little surprised at the progress that Korra had made after just one day of running the course. She wasn't doing outstanding but better than the last time she had. But he was also growing exasperated with how she was currently doing. Patience, Korra! Tenzin advised worriedly once he realized that Korra seemed to be losing what little patience she had left. Tenzin's words fell on deaf ears as Korra lost her temper completely at that point and started to use her fire bending on the gates. The avatar threw a flurry of punches, unleashing a fireball with each punch that destroyed another gate. The airbenders were watching Korra's destruction of the gates, silently dodging away from any stray piece of the now kindling that headed in their direction, while Naruto kept count of each destroyed gate. Once she was done, Korra was breathing heavily, her eyes shifting to the gates that remained standing, almost wishing they would move the tiniest bit so that she could destroy them as well. That was a 2,000-year-old historical treasure. Tenzin cried in shell-shocked despair. What is wrong with you? The Airbender Master demanded. Naruto snorted in amusement. 2,000 years old? The blonde Airbender questioned. Have you forgotten that each one of us has destroyed some of those gates when you had us do this exercise? Naruto said, gesturing to himself and his siblings. Grunkle Sokka told me once that destroyed some of these as well. He stated, grinning at the embarrassed look that his father now sported. By the way, I counted about 9 or 11 gates destroyed, meaning that Jinora still holds the record at 13. Naruto declared afterwards. Unseen by any of the older group, Jinora, fisted pumped happily, watched only by her younger siblings. Grunkle? Korra questioned a bit calmly. When she first emerged from the gates, Korra was still angry, and she was about to snap at Tenzin, though she was given the chance to calm down when Naruto started talking. What is that? Naruto looked at Korra like the answer should have been obvious. You know, Grunkle, Grand Uncle, Grunkle. Naruto said clearly. Tenzin rubbed his forehead at the embarrassing memory of the time he destroyed the gates himself, even more embarrassing, a measly 5 less than even Milo's 6, as he tried to shift the attention to the here and now. Korra, the Airbending Master began, drawing the avatar's attention. If you would just be a bit more patient and continue practicing, I promise you that this training will bear fruit. Tenzin swore. I've been practicing just like you taught me, Korra replied unenthusiastically. But it isn't sinking in, okay? It hasn't clicked like you said it would, she said accusingly. Korra, this isn't something you can force, Tenzin said, trying to keep things peaceful. If you would only listen to me, he insisted. Despite calming down once Naruto had appeared, Korra was still angry, and that anger was being probed to the surface with Tenzin's insistence. I have been, she snapped at him loudly. But you know what I think? Maybe the problem isn't me. Maybe the reason I haven't learned airbending yet is because you're a terrible teacher, she accused Tenzin, pointing at him. Naruto has helped me more to get this stupid training exercise than you have, so maybe he should be the one training me instead, Korra shouted before storming off. Milo stepped up to his father and pointed at him. Yeah, you're a terrible teacher, Daddy. Milo faltered before running into Rekagi of the destroyed gates and started to throw and kick pieces around gleefully. Tenzin looked down in defeat, taking some solace in the hugs that his daughters were giving him. Naruto placed a hand on Tenzin's shoulder consolingly. I'll go check on Korra, he said, getting an appreciative nod from Tenzin. It didn't take long for Naruto to catch up to Korra, but the avatar refused to say anything at the moment. Eventually the two found themselves at the meditation pavilion, and after a minute of silence between them, Naruto finally said something. Are you okay? Naruto asked her cautiously. Korra sighed before answering. Yeah, I'm fine, I just needed to get all that off my chest. I'm probably going to have to apologize later to Tenzin, Korra said before finally processing that Naruto was actually there. Where have you been? I was surprised when I didn't see you at meditation this morning, the avatar told him, looking at Naruto curiously. I promised to have breakfast with a friend of mine, so I was out with them, Naruto told her with a foxy grin. A friend, huh? Korra said with raised eyebrow. Yup, Naruto replied with a nod of his head. So excited for the match tonight? Naruto asked her in return. Korra was still a little curious about the friend that Naruto had met with but was really looking forward to the match tonight. As curious as Korra might have been, the excitement that she felt easily overcame it, so she found herself going along with the change in topic. Definitely, Korra voiced out. As the sun began to set, the Airbending family had gathered around a low table as they waited for dinner to be served. Tenzin was sitting on one side of the table, arms crossed and a disgruntled look on his face. Across from him sat Jinora, Ikki, and Milo, with the oldest of the trio reading a book. Pema walked into the dining room and placed a tray of food on the table. "Okay, everyone here?" she asked before looking around and noticing that there were two important people missing from their table. "Wait, where are Naruto and Korra?" she asked aloud. Honestly, Pema, Tenzin was the first to answer his wife. "I am at my wit's end with that girl. I don't know how to get through to her," he admits, slumping forward. "Naruto seems to understand her. Maybe it would be best if he were take over Korra's training." The Airbending master voiced out some of his doubts. Pema sat down beside her husband and put an arm around him while giving him a gentle smile. "Are you really that surprised that Naruto and Korra are getting along, knowing your son?" she questioned him. Tenzin sighs before shaking his head. "No, I suppose not," he acknowledges with brief smile appearing on his face. Pema nodded her head approvingly. Naruto can naturally get along with anyone he meets. He connects with other people's hearts with just a few words. They're also about the same age, so of course they were going to be friends, she pointed out, drawing a nod from Tenzin before continuing. "Dear, listen, the best thing you can do right now is to give Korra some space," Pema advised him. "Things will work themselves out." Tenzin could see the logic behind Pema's words. That didn't make his experience with Korra that afternoon any easier. The Airbending master looked at Jinora across from him with a pleading look on his face. "You must promise me that your teenage years won't be like this," he practically begged her, almost drawing a laugh from his wife. Jinora looked up from her book, it covering the lower half of her face, and gave her father a deadpan look. "Naruto is my brother," she started off by pointing out, a concept that Tenzin seemed to grasp as he paled considerably, before continuing. "I will make no such promises." Jinora finished and then turned her attention back to her book. In response, Tenzin slammed his head onto the table, drawing a laugh from Pema, and seeing their mother openly laughing at their father, Milo and Ikki followed suit. That night, Naruto and Korra managed to sneak their way into the pro-bending arena once more. Walking into the locker room, they expected their friends to either be excited and eager or tense and nervous. What they didn't expect was to see Mako and Bolan in sullen moods. "We didn't miss your match, did we?" Korra asked as she and Naruto walked up to the brothers. "You guys look like you lost already," she pointed out. "We might as well have," Bolan replied depressingly. "Hasuke's a no-good no-show," Mako growled out angrily. The referee stuck his head into the locker room and addressed the members of the Fire Ferrets. "You have 2 minutes to come out ready to play or you're disqualified," he informed them before waiting somewhat impatiently for their response. "Well, there goes our shot at the tournament, and the winnings," Mako muttered resignedly. "Can't you ask one of those guys to fill in?" Korra suggested, pointing toward a couple of players who were in the process of taking off their equipment. Bolan, though, had to shoot Korra's suggestion down. "Nah, the rules say you can only compete on one team," he informed her. "Well then, what about Korra?" Naruto proposed, throwing an arm around Korra's shoulder. Korra's face brightened at Naruto's recommendation and what it would mean for her. "Yeah, what about me?" she agreed, an eager smile. "I'm a top-notch waterbender, if I do say so myself," Korra told them optimistically. "I can second that," Naruto added in with a nod, having spared with Korra enough to concur with her statement. Bolan looked at Korra skeptically. "But you're the Avatar," Bolan pointed out obviously. "Isn't that cheating?" he asked her. Korra just smiled reassuringly. "It isn't cheating if I only do waterbending," she claimed. Mako thought it over for a second before outright refusing. "No way. he decided. I'd rather forfeit than look like a fool out there. The firebender told them. The smile that Korra wore turned into a frown as she glared lightly at Mako. Wow, thanks for the vote of confidence, Korra muttered. Time's up. You in or out? The referee asked them. We're in, Korra answered quickly. We are? Mako said confused. Yes, Bolan agreed while pumping his fists. Mako switched his gaze between Korra and Bolan as they made their way to the lockers so that Korra could suit up. Hey, I didn't agree to this, he argued. Sure you did, Naruto replied with a fox-like grin. Just now. Korra chuckled a bit before addressing Mako. You can thank me later, she told Mako. This girl is crazy, Mako muttered mostly to himself. Naruto glanced at Mako, having heard his muttering, before returning his attention back to Korra. I think it's more like headstrong and determined, Naruto argued, looking at Korra with a smile. But crazy works. Naruto watched Korra's debut from the locker rooms. Unfortunately, the bell had no sooner finished ringing before Korra performed a foul by sending the opposing waterbender over the side of the ring. Things didn't improve from there for the Fire Ferrets, as Korra performed another foul by stepping over the line, sending her into the third zone of the ring in just the first few minutes of the game. It all came to a head when the members of the opposing team, the Platypus Bears, started to target Korra solely. After suffering under a barrage of water and fire attacks, Korra let out a growl before earthbending a couple of earth discs to act as a shield for her to block the attacks, much to the shock of everyone in the arena. Naruto cringed when the broadcaster announced Korra's status as the avatar over the radio. Maybe Dad didn't hear it. He mentally reasoned with himself. I mean, what are the odds that my old man would choose tonight to listen to a pro-bending match? Naruto questioned. A few minutes later, Naruto wondered if he jinxed himself when he spotted his father waiting for Korra after she fell into the drink. You're not going to stay and watch the rest of the match? Naruto asked his father, meeting up with the man as the master airbender was leaving. Naruto, Tenzin said, turning to face his son with a displeased look on his face. Why am I not surprised that you would accompany Korra on this venture? The airbending master questioned rhetorically. Before you two got off on a technicality, but now you are flagrantly disobeying my orders. Korra has committed herself to this folly, but after tonight I will make sure she doesn't leave the island again. Naruto frowned at his father. That's exactly why Korra should be here, Naruto told his father. She is never going to master airbending if she feels restricted with nothing to focus on but her inability to airbend. She needs something that can help her unwind, besides throwing fireballs at me. Tenzin almost smiled at Naruto's last remark. And you think this drivel will help? Tenzin questioned him. Naruto looked back towards the playing field with a smile spreading wide across his face. Definitely, Naruto answered. Tenzin turned his gaze to the arena as well as is stunned by what he saw. Well, how about that? He murmured as he watched Korra dodge around the Platypus Bears team's attacks like an airbender. The Platypus Bears team ended up making a mistake by focusing their attention on Korra as she dodged all their strikes, leaving them completely drained. Without any means to defend themselves, the Platypus Bears were easy pickings for the Fire Ferrets, winning the Fire Ferrets the match. Woohoo! Tenzin cheered, only to cough self-consciously at the look that Naruto was giving him. Back in the arena, Mako walked up to the celebrating Bolan and Korra, his focus on the avatar. Korra, what can I say? Mako began. You really came alive in that last round. The way you dodged their attacks, you are a natural, he told her with a smile on his face. Thanks, Korra replied. But I can't take all the credit, she told him before looking off to the side, easily being able to spot Naruto's brightly colored hair and clothes as he stood next to Tenzin. Someone else taught me those moves, Korra finished while gazing at Naruto with a fond smile. Later that night, Naruto watched as Korra walked up to him after talking with his father. So how did he take you joining the Fire Ferrets? He asked her curiously. Oh, you know Tenzin. Korra replied vaguely yet with a smile on his face. He was ecstatic. Congratulated me and everything, she said sarcastically. Naruto chuckled, clearly imagining what his father's real response must have been once he heard what Korra had done. How about we go out to celebrate? Naruto offered with a fox-like grin. I know this great little place that serves the best noodles. Really? That sounds great, let's go, Korra said happily with a wide smile of her own. Together the two set out to celebrate Korra's first pro-bending match, winning, and becoming a member of the Fire Ferrets. Korra wondered, not for the first time, which spirit one of her many past lives must have angered for her to experience this kind of torture. As it has been stated before, if Korra wasn't one thing, it was a morning person. Yet the young avatar found herself at the pro-bending arena, just a day after officially joining the team, before even eating breakfast training with the other members of her team. What's the big idea with making me train this early in the morning? Korra demanded, irritated, with bags under her eyes, as she tried to suppress a yawn as she caught a ball thrown at her by Mako before passing it on to Bolan. The morning is evil, she claimed in a foreboding whisper. We're the rookies, so we get the worst time slot in the gym, Bolan answered, catching the ball and throwing it to his brother. And you're the rookiest of us all, Mako added, catching the pass. We gotta get you up to speed if you want to survive in the tournament. Deal with it. He finished, tossing the ball towards Korra. Korra winced, catching the ball, but an annoyed look quickly crossed her face. You deal with it, Korra countered, tossing the ball back. Mako caught the ball but found himself getting knocked off his feet and sliding across the ground on his back. Bolan chuckled a bit at his brother's misfortune, happy that he didn't end up suffering from Korra's anger. So, the earthbender began addressing Korra. Where's Naruto? I'm surprised you didn't invite him to come to our training session today, Bolan said honestly. In the couple of days that Bolan had known Naruto and Korra, the two seemed pretty inseparable, something which Bolan anguished over since it meant he couldn't spend any time alone with Korra, so it kind of surprised him not to see the airbender that morning. The satisfied smirk that Korra wore at Mako ending up on the floor changed into a frown as she turned her attention from one brother to the other. I don't know, Korra admitted. When I got up this morning, Naruto had already disappeared. When I asked Tenzin and Pema where he was, all they said was that he had gone out. She told them. This would be the second time that Naruto had disappeared on her, and Korra was still curious where he got off to. Oh, meeting a lady friend maybe? Bolan suggested, suggestively wiggling his eyebrows. Korra reeled back in shock at the suggestion. What? No! Korra denied vehemently, and instantly. If Naruto was meeting a girl, then Korra was sure that she would know about it. Wouldn't she? Okay, not that this hasn't been real interesting, Mako coughed out as sarcastically as he could while he picked himself gingerly off the ground. But can we leave Naruto's love life alone and get back to training? Sure, whatever, Korra said, crossing her arms in front of her, trying to sound completely indifferent to the conversation that they had just been having, though she was actually a bit anxious for some reason. At that moment, a man entered the room. He had a gray hat that covered a bald head, a black coat over a green vest with a white shirt with a popped collar underneath that, and a yellow ascot around his neck, and mustache. The man also wore dark pants and brown boots. There are my little hard-working street urchins. The man greeted the Fire Ferrets merrily before focusing his attention on Korra, specifically speaking much more respectfully. It's an honor to finally meet you, Avatar, he told her. And you are? Korra asked the man skeptically. Butaka. He introduced himself grandly with flourish of his hat. I run this whole pro-bending shebang, Butaka claimed, replacing his hat. As Korra walked away, Butaka turned his attention to the two brothers as he handed Mako a small stack of yuans that Mako accepted with a large grin. Here's your winnings from the last match, Butaka said, but stopped Mako as the firebender was putting the money away. Aha! Not so fast. First, you owe me for the Avatar's new gear, gym and equipment rentals for the last month, rent on your apartment, and a personal loan for groceries. With each new charge, Bataka took more of the winnings out of Mako's hand until there was nothing left. When Mako heard the last expense, he turned disapproving and expectant look at Bolan. "What?" Bolan said, pabu around his shoulders, defensively as he rubbed his stomach. "I'm a growing boy," he argued. "Oh. And one more small item of business." Bataka began drawing the two brothers' focus back to himself. "The Fire Ferrets need to ante up 30,000 yuans for the championship pot," he told them. 30,000 yuans, Bolan repeated disbelievingly with a gaping mouth. "Sorry, kids," Bataka said honestly. While renting out the attic, he had grown to like Mako and Bolan, even if just a little. "You've got till the end of the week to come up with the dough, or else you're out of the tournament," he told them, patting Mako on the shoulder before walking away. As Bataka left, Korra rejoined her teammates. Bolan looked at Korra with a hopeful look in his eyes. "You wouldn't happen to have a secret avatar bank account, overflowing with gold, would you?" Bolan asked optimistically. Korra shook her head as she turned her pockets and sighed out. "I got nothing," she told them. "I've never really needed money. I've always had people taking care of me." "Then I wouldn't say you have nothing," Mako grumbled as he packed up the equipment they had been using. Korra flinched a bit. "Sorry, I didn't mean," she apologized quickly. "No, it's all right," Bolan hurried to assure her. "It's just, ever since we lost our parents, we've been on our own," he told her sadly. "I'm so sorry." Korra apologized again. "I didn't know." "So anyway," Mako continued, changing the subject, "how are we going to come up with the money?" "We could have Pabu perform tricks," Bolan suggested, holding the fire ferret out to everyone. "I've been training him to do circus tricks. People would pay good money to see that." "Come on, Bolan," Mako said exasperatedly. "We need serious ideas," he told his brother, causing him to sulk. "Don't worry about it. I'll figure something out. I always do." In one of Republic City's many restaurants, one of their more upscale ones, Naruto did his best not to fidget at the uncomfortable clothing he was currently wearing. His current setting was one he knew he should be used to, especially with how often he found himself in this restaurant, and others like it with his eating companion, but no matter how many times he repeated it, he just couldn't get accustomed to it. "Would you stop squirming?" a female voice asked gently. Looking at the person sitting next to him, Naruto found a young woman that he knew well. She had long wavy black hair, a few strands falling in front of her shoulders, a light touch of makeup that accented her beauty with prominent red lipstick, and light green eyes that were staring back at Naruto in no small amounts of amusement and affection. She was wearing a dark red dress, which if she stood up would fall nearly all the way to the ground, accentuated in gold near the front that hugged her curves perfectly. This was Asami Sato, a childhood friend of Naruto's and possibly one of his closest friends. Leaning closer, diminishing the already small space between them, Asami tried to smooth out the black and gray suit that Naruto was made to wear for their breakfast meeting. "You're going to end up wrinkling your clothes," she chided him, taking extra care with the red scarf that Naruto was still wearing, gazing at it with a soft tenderness as she ran her hand over it gently. "You know I don't like wearing these things," Naruto replied with a frown. "Why did we have to eat here?" he asked her. After a few more seconds of inspecting Naruto clothing, Asami leaned back to look at Naruto with amusement clearly evident in her eyes and a playful smirk dancing across her face. "Because you got to pick the place last time," she started off. "And you owe me for not ratting you out for that prank you pulled, so I'll get the pick the place next time too," Asami decided. "You helped me get the paint," Naruto loudly whispered. Asami giggled a bit at how similar Naruto looked to his father at that moment, even turning a little red before replying. "Details?" she said offhandedly with a wave of her hand. "I can't believe that you're still wearing that thing," Asami said, once more staring at his scarf. She had given that scarf to Naruto back when they were kids. It was her first and last foray into knitting. The end result was a scarf that was far too long for a child with many frays in it. Over the years, Asami had done her best to fix those mistakes so it no longer looks like it would fall to pieces at the seams at any given moment. Of course I am, Naruto replied readily. You gave it to me and I promised to always wear it, he stated obviously. When we were kids, Asami said with a smile. What kind of person actually keeps the promises they make when they were kids? She asked him, amused. Naruto pouted childishly as he looked away from her. I do, he murmured before looking back at Asami with a teasing grin. Does that mean you're not going to marry me in a few years? Naruto asked her in return. Asami laughed openly at the reminder of that particular promise. I don't know, Asami said teasingly. There is this one guy I have my eyes on. Bet he isn't as awesome as I am, Naruto claimed while puffing out his chest. Another giggle escaped Asami at Naruto's action. Well, I know he doesn't have a cute set whiskers I love to rub, she replied, reaching out with her hand to touch Naruto's cheek. Or purrs like you, the brunette added in. Asami had barely been able to stroke Naruto's cheek once before the blonde airbender snapped her hand away, before he could start purring like she said, and looked around frenziedly to see if anyone saw what Asami had done. I told you not to do that in public, Naruto hissed at her. With a wide smile, Asami laughed once more, though this time far quieter as to not draw any attention. Right, I forgot. You have this manly reputation to uphold, she joked, drawing another pout from Naruto. After a few minutes to allow herself to calm down some and enjoy their food, Asami continued speaking. So, what is she like? Asami asked curiously. Who are you talking about? Naruto returned, feigning ignorance. You know who I'm talking about, Asami countered without the slightest bits of hesitation. Korra? The Avatar. What is she like? The young woman asked him. Naruto hummed thoughtfully for a second before answering. She's interesting, he said vaguely. Interesting. Asami deadpanned dully. You want to try and be a little more specific, she urged on. Naruto gave Asami a wide grin before releasing a sigh and running his hand through his hair and answering. She's stubborn. Naruto eventually started off. Once Korra's decided on something, she refuses to listen to anyone and won't let anyone stop her. She's also reckless, she doesn't think things through. Doesn't think about the trouble her actions could get herself into, though it's usually fun to watch what kind of trouble she gets into. He finished with a mischievous laugh. Really now? Asami mused with a smirk on her face. She kind of reminds me of someone I know. Who? Naruto asked in full obliviousness, tilting his head to the side in confusion. Asami rolled her eyes, smacking his shoulder. Korra does keep things interesting on the island, Naruto admitted. Plus, she keeps Dad busy so he isn't as focused on me most of the time. He added, his smile becoming a little lackluster. That must be nice. Asami agreed, softly patting Naruto's shoulder gently. I heard that Korra joined a pro-bending team. The Fire Ferrets? How is that going? She asked him to get his mind off of where it currently was. A bit of brightness returned to Naruto's smile as he thought about Korra's performance during her first match and how they celebrated afterwards. Asami was happy to see Naruto cheering up, though she felt a twinge of something she couldn't identify at the understanding that Naruto was thinking about Korra. The frown that had momentarily appeared on Asami's face disappeared just as quickly, though. Well, she's enthusiastic and excited about it, Naruto said. The bending Korra can do easy. It's every other part of pro-bending that she seems to be having a problem with, he stated, laughing a bit. She's actually used what she learned from the gates to win her first match. You don't say. Asami mused, a bit tickled that Korra was having some trouble with the sport. She also knew what gates Naruto was talking about, having actually gone through them herself, on her first try, much to Naruto's frustration, when Naruto was first doing the exercise. Then by the sounds of it, it won't be long before she's playing like a pro, the brunette complimented. Naruto hummed in agreement before focusing entirely on Asami. So, what's new with you? He asked her. Asami stared back at Naruto with raised eyebrow. You mean since we saw each other yesterday? She said good-humoredly before shrugging her shoulders slightly. You know the usual. Studying to take over my father's company someday, taking my self-defense classes, spent a couple of hours shopping, drove around on my moped. Blew up a room, nearly ran someone over. Naruto offered in seamlessly. You blow up a lab once and you never hear the end of it. Asami muttered in a huff. Naruto snorted in amusement. Once. Naruto got out. What? This week? He questioned. I've never ran anyone over. Asami protested, hitting Naruto's shoulder, ignoring Airbender's incredulity. Well, with the way you drive. Naruto returned before shrugging his shoulders with a grin. It's only a matter of time, he stated confidently. Oh, be quiet. Asami ordered, hitting Naruto's shoulder once more. For the rest of breakfast the two friends spent it trading barbs, laughing at a few jokes, and conspiring on future pranks, to which Asami would make sure nothing could be tied to her, keeping her out of trouble, and so she might remain the innocent and well-behaved girl in everyone's eyes. Returning to Air Temple Island a few hours later after eating breakfast with Asami, Naruto made his way to the gates to find Korra once more practicing with the help of his two sisters. For a moment, Naruto just watched Korra silently, seeing how the avatar had progressed with the exercise. Unlike before her first match playing along with the fire ferrets, where she would occasionally stumble and end up hitting a gate before quickly recovering herself, Korra now performed the steps flawlessly and with an almost mastered grace. Now the only thing left was for her to really master the exercise before his father decided to continue Korra's training with the next step. Great job, Korra. Naruto complimented the brunette after she successfully stepped out of the spinning gates. Korra's eyes lit up hearing Naruto's voice before spotting the airbender. Naruto! Korra said excitedly, rushing up to him. Once she reached him, she calmed slightly to not appear too eager to see him. Where were you? She asked him. We missed you at practice. Oh, how did that go? Naruto asked her in return. Korra frowned a bit, remembering what transpired that morning. It started off okay, I guess. Turns out that if the fire ferrets want to compete in the tournament, we need to put in 30,000 yuans for the winning pot. Korra told him before looking at Naruto hopefully, despite how unlikely she knew what she was about to ask would be. You wouldn't happen to have the money lying around, would you? Naruto snorted at Korra's question, a look of clear amusement in his eyes. Sorry, no. Naruto apologized with a grin. Not unless you believe that old story about Grandpa Ing and Grunkle Sokka burying some treasure somewhere on the island, he told her. Korra sighed. Well, without that money we're out of the tournament before it even started. Korra said, resigned before focusing back at Naruto accusingly. Which you would know if you had been there, but you weren't. She stated, looking at him expectantly. Naruto scratched the back of his head as he grinned a bit sheepishly. I was having breakfast with a friend of mine, Naruto revealed. Korra raised an eyebrow curiously. This friend wouldn't happen to be a girl, would it? She pressed while trying to appear not too interested with Naruto's answer. Naruto stared at Korra in slight surprise, blinking a couple of times. Yes, actually. Naruto confirmed, surprised at Korra's correct guess. How did you know? Before Korra could answer, Ikki and Jinora rushed up to their brother and Korra. Both girls were staring at their brother with large smiles on their faces and eyes practically sparkling. Was it Asami? Ikki asked hurriedly. I bet that it was Asami. You're always hanging out with her. Were you on a date? Is Asami your girlfriend? Are you two going to get married? Does that mean you and Korra aren't going to end up together like Gran and Grandpa Ing? Ikki asked a rapid series of questions, not letting Naruto answer a single one, or even open his mouth, before she asked the next one. I call Flower Girl, Jinora said, shooting her hand up in the air. Ikki turned to her older sister with a pout on her face. No fair, Jinora. The little girl whined. I wanted to be the Flower Girl. Too bad, I already called it. Jinora replied with a smirk on her face. Ikki opened her mouth to argue further with her sister, only for the two to be silenced when Naruto sent a strong gust of wind at them, nearly knocking them off their feet and messing up their hair. "Hey!" both girls shouted in protest, glaring at their brother while trying to fix their clothing and straighten out their hair. "You two need to learn when to be quiet," Naruto muttered at them, to which the two stuck out their tongues at him. Korra found her cheeks darkening at the implication that Naruto and she might have dated, but quickly composed herself before any of the airbending siblings could notice. "And who is Asami?" she asked Naruto. Naruto grinned at Korra as he thought of his childhood friend. "Asami Sato." Naruto began giving Korra Asami's full name. "She is one of my oldest and closest friends," Naruto told her. "Sato?" Korra repeated curiously with a raised eyebrow. "Like Satomobiles? And future industries?" she asked. Even being stuck at the bottom of the world, Korra had heard about future industries and their innovative creation, the Satomobile, a luxury item made for transportation. Since coming to Republic City, Korra had seen hundreds of them roving throughout the city. "Yup," Naruto confirmed before a thoughtful look crossed his face. "In fact, I'm sure that she can also help you get the 30,000 yuans for the championship pot," Naruto supplied thoughtfully before giving a reassuring grin. "I'll talk to her about it next time I see her," he promised. "Great," Korra drawled out, not as happy as she thought she would be with the information. "So anyway, now that you are here, how about helping me with my training?" the Avatar said hopefully. The grin that Naruto was sporting turned apologetic as he rubbed the back of his head. "Sorry, Korra," Naruto apologized. "I can't," he stated, Korra's expression becoming crestfallen. "I was actually planning focusing on my own training right now," the airbender explained apologetically. "Oh yeah, sure, that's fine. Totally fine," Korra replied, a little disappointed. "Maybe later then?" she asked. "Definitely," Naruto assured her, before leaving for another part of the island. Korra stared at Naruto's retreating form for a few seconds before turning and immediately noticing Ikki and Jinora staring at her, their gazes somewhere between questioning and accusing. "What?" Korra said a little defensively. "Come on," she huffed, walking past the two sisters towards the gates. "Let's get back to it," the Avatar insisted. As the sun began to set, Korra was still working on the gates with Jinora and Ikki, having taken the occasional break to eat and relax before getting back to it. After several hours of practice, and feeling more than a little tired, Korra was still exhilarated by the fact that she was now weaving rather perfectly through the gates, her eyes closed, relying on feeling the air around her to help her through. "Good. Light on your feet," Jinora encouraged, proudly watching Korra. Korra came out of the gates, a brief smile on her face before leaned forward, her hands on her knees, as she panted for breath. Even still, nothing could stop the pride swelling within the Avatar. While Korra was catching her breath, Jinora and Ikki spotted someone walking towards them. "Oh, he's cute," Jinora commented lightly before turning a mischievous smile towards Korra. "Korra, is that the handsome firebender boy that drives you crazy?" Jinora asked teasingly, having heard Korra complain about him earlier during the day. Ikki quickly caught on and started questioning Korra as well. "Does he drive you crazy in a bad way? Or does he drive you crazy like you like him?" she asked rapidly, leaning forward with an eager expression on her face, before it seemed to become even more excited. "Do you like him or our brother more? Which one do you want to date? Oh, if you and Naruto do get married, can I be the flower girl at your wedding?" A look of embarrassment quickly crosses Korra's face, picturing herself and Naruto in a relationship, before she begins to glare at the two younger girls. "You know what? Naruto's right. You two do need to learn when to be quiet," she hissed at them before using her earthbending to hurl them away. Quickly composing herself, Korra turns to face Mako, as Ikki and Jinora land lightly behind them while giggling madly. "Oh, hey, Mako," Korra greeted her teammate calmly. Mako completely ignores Korra's greeting, looked around in search of his brother only to frown when he didn't spot him. Have you seen Bolan? He asked Korra bluntly. Korra stared at Mako dryly. Nice to see you too, Korra said sarcastically before continuing. And no, I haven't seen him since practice, she told him before noticing the worried expression that appeared on Mako's face. Think something is wrong? Korra asked with a hint of her worry in her own voice now. I don't know, Mako admitted as he looked back towards the city. Bolan has a knack for getting into stupid situations, he explained before letting out a sigh and saying a quick farewell. See you later. Korra quickly moved to stand in front of Mako, keeping him from leaving. Wait. I could help you look for him, she insisted. We can even get Naruto to help. Nah, I got it, Mako replied, walking around Korra. Korra grabbed his arm, forcing him to look back at her. Hey, if Bolan is in trouble, then we will want to help. So, let us help you. We can take Naga, she offered. Mako looked at Korra with a raised eyebrow. Who's Naga? He asked her curiously. Korra grinned broadly before answering. My best friend and a great tracker, the Avatar told him. Come on, I'll introduce you after we find Naruto. And where is he? Mako questioned, doing another quick sweep of the area and only spotting the two young airbenders standing off to the side. Ikki seemed to have heard him as she immediately raised her hand in response. I know where he is, the young girl claimed. Jinora and Ikki led Mako and Korra to a different part of the island, well away from where Korra had been practicing. It was a cove with some woodland near the back of the cove. Korra and Mako were a little in awe of Naruto's chosen training ground as they spotted the blonde airbender resting, his bare feet in the cool water and his shirt off. Korra caught herself staring at Naruto's bare chest, a light sheen of sweat on it from his training, for a couple of seconds before snapping herself out of it. The second thing that Korra noticed, and the first thing that Mako had, were the long slash marks that were located on the rock wall that was behind Naruto. Along with it there was evidence of similar slashes along the ground, fainter because of the sand, and a few trees that had branches cut off littering the ground. Well, what happened here? Korra asked, alerting Naruto to their presence. Neither Mako nor Korra noticed the way that Ikki and Jinora seemed to fidget slightly in unease. Hey guys. Naruto greeted them. What's up? I would ask what caused this. Korra began, gesturing the slash marks in the wall, before continuing. But we've sort of got an emergency right now, the Avatar told him. Bolan's missing, Mako revealed worriedly. As soon as Naruto had heard that Bolan was missing, he gathered his things and the trio had set out on Naga. By the time that they got into the city and approached the area that Mako claimed that Bolan liked to hang out, the sun had already set. With the three of them riding on Naga's back, it made it a bit uncomfortable, if not awkward, ride with Korra up front, Naruto right behind her, and Mako behind him. Your best friend is a polar bear dog, Mako eventually observed after finally get his mind wrapped around being introduced to Naga. Are you surprised? Naruto questioned the black-haired boy, looking back at him from over his shoulder. No, Mako decided. Actually, it somehow makes perfect sense, he stated with a smirk. I'll take that as a compliment, city boy, Korra shot back. What I want to know, Naruto started, is why we didn't use Yuzu to search for Bolan from the sky? Naga's a better tracker, Korra refuted. And it'd be easier to spot anything that might help us find Bolan from the ground instead of the air while in the city, the Avatar claimed, causing Naruto to nod his head relentingly. Eventually the small group came upon Central City Station, the main hub of transportation for the city and the location of Zuko's statue. Dismounting Naga, they started to look around for any signs of Bolan. Briefly Korra looked up at the statue, a smile spreading across her face as she imagined the imposing statue painted pink from Naruto's prank. If the situation were different, Korra wholeheartedly believed that she would have started laughing. Well, this is his usual hangout, Mako muttered, a deep frown plastered on his face when he didn't spot his brother. What he did see was a group of children playing nearby, one of which he recognized immediately. "You guys seen my brother around here today?" he asked them as he walked over towards the group. In response, the boy that Mako recognized, a young child with tan skin, brown eyes, and dark brown hair under a hat, skulked closer with a wide smirk. "Perhaps," the boy began slyly. "My memory is a little foggy," he claimed, rubbing his nose. "Maybe you can help clear it up," the boy claimed, holding his hand out expectantly. Mako sighs, knowing exactly what the boy was waiting for. "You're good, Scoochie," the firebender said, pulling out a yuan from his pocket and handing it to the aforementioned Scoochie. "A real pro." Korra observed the byplay incredulously, and a jaw slightly dropped before rounding on Naruto to see his reaction. In response, Naruto simply shrugged his shoulders with an amused smile. Turning back to the other pair, Korra had a displeased look on her face, though Naruto thought it looked a lot like pout that he found cute. Eventually, Scoochie told them everything that he knew about Bolan, after extracting another yuan from Mako. The last thing he saw about the earthbender was him leaving with a man called Shady Shin. The most disturbing news that they discovered was that the gangs of Republic City recruiting as many people as they could to join their gangs. Afterwards, Scoochie and his friends ran off. "What's he talking about?" Korra asked the two Republic City-born residents. Naruto had a serious look on his face as he answered Korra's question. "He's talking about a turf war between all the gangs. And Bolan's about to get caught right in the middle of it," Mako added in uneasily yet just as seriously as Naruto. Immediately afterwards, the three set out on Naga once more, following Mako's directions across the city. The firebender was quiet, understandably so, with the exception of throwing out a few directions. "So where exactly are we headed?" Korra asked, trying to coax Mako out of his thoughts. "Triple Threat Triad's headquarters," Mako answered eventually. "Hopefully Bolan's there and nothing's gone down yet." "How do you know where the Triad's headquarters is?" Naruto asked Mako, looking back at the firebender curiously, with a raised eyebrow, Mako refusing to make eye contact with the blonde. "I beat up some of those yahoos when I got into town," Korra stated, remembering the three bozos whose asses she kicked. Why would Bolan get tangled up with? She began to ask, only to be cut off when Naga suddenly jerked to the side, chasing after something that scurried across the ground in front of them. "Whoa, Naga!" Korra cried, pulling on Naga's reins, trying to get her back under control. It took a few seconds for Mako to recover from Naga's sudden lurch before he identified what the polar bear dog was chasing. "That's Pabu," the firebender claimed. "No, Naga. Pabu's a friend, not a snack," Korra scolded her companion, trying to get her to stop. Naruto jumped off of Naga and used his airbending to help him run faster, outstripping Naga and quickly catching up to Pabu. Snatching the small ferret off the ground and holding it in his arms, Naruto spun around, holding his staff pointed at Naga, the tip inches away from the polar bear dog's head, Naga rearing its head back. "Easy there," he said calmly before resting his staff against his shoulder and patting Naga on her head. Seeing that Naga was no longer hunting him down, Pabu moved across Naruto's arm, leaning towards Naga and touching noses with her. It was actually quite an adorable sight. With Pabu with them now, the trio, plus the two animal companions, quickly arrived at what Mako identified to be the Triad's headquarters. "Something's not right," Mako stated, moving carefully towards the front door, moving from side to side, until coming to the door and trying to get peek inside. "There are usually thugs posted out front. We better be cautious," he whispered, motioning for the other two benders to join him. Unlike Mako, Korra and Naruto nonchalantly walked up to the front door, Naruto with a fox-like grin, amused by how Mako was acting, before Korra simply and brashly kicked the door open. While Mako might have wanted to glare at Korra for being so rash when entering the base of a known gang, he was too busy surveying the room to pay her much mind. The room looked, for a lack of better word, trashed. The room was completely devoid of people, with furniture broken and turned over. Despite what his eyes were telling him, Mako still looked around in search of Bolan, hoping to find his brother there. "Bolan? You in here?" he asked hopefully, despite how small, nearly non-existent, the chances were. The roaring sound of an engine from behind the building drew Naruto, Korra, and Mako's attention. Exiting the building from the back, Korra once more kicking the door open, the trio spotted a group of men dressed in dark clothing and masks covering their faces. The men were mounted on motorcycles and closing the doors on the back of a truck. Just before the doors could be fully closed, though, they were able to catch a glimpse of Bolan tied up and gagged in the back along with a few other men. "Bolan!" Mako shouted as the truck took off. The firebender started to chase after the truck that was taking his brother, only be stopped by the people on the motorcycles. The riders tossed canisters at the benders that released green smoke and then took that chance to escape. The smoke hadn't even begun to settle around them before Naruto started spinning his staff, using his airbending to blow the smoke away. "Come on," Naruto said, "we can't let them get away." He finished before taking off in a run, once more using his bending to help him run faster than most people would have thought possible. "Naga, come!" Korra called, summoning the polar bear dog that came barreling through the building, Pabu riding on Naga's back, and coming to a stop next to her. Climbing on, the two took off after Naruto and the people, taking Bolan. Riding on Naga, it didn't take long for Korra and Mako to catch up with Naruto and the others. The benders tried to stop their escaping targets with their bending. Sadly, the truck was slowly getting away, and the motorcyclists were managing to either avoid the attacks or quickly righted themselves before anything could happen. Eventually, a trio of the riders dismounted, using a BOLO to tie up Naga's legs, causing her to trip over. They tried to do the same to Naruto. Fortunately, the blonde used his staff to block it, before tossing it back at them. Sadly, they dodged the BOLO. Naruto moved to stand between the fallen Korra and Mako, having landed a little roughly on the ground after being flung off Naga's back because of the BOLO, to defend them from any attacks. Though they quickly got themselves back on their feet. Each of the three benders faced off against their own opponent. Mako and Korra started off by shooting blasts of fire at the masked individuals, only for them to dodge around the attacks, moving really fluidly, before managing to strike the two benders in the side or with light jabs. Naruto was having better luck with his opponent, managing either to block the jabs with his staff or dodge them just as well as their opponents. A few blasts of air resulted in Naruto's opponent being knocked over, but they quickly recovered and rolled back onto their feet. The fight continued in a similar fashion for several more minutes, for everyone. The masked fighters' attacks didn't seem to do a lot of damage initially, but it only took a few seconds for Korra to start to realize that she was starting to lose feeling in the limbs that had been struck, and by the looks of it, Mako was suffering from the same affliction. Despite doing relatively better than his two friends, even Naruto had been struck a couple of times, resulting in him favoring one leg over the other, and using his staff mostly with one arm. Jumping back, Naruto landed beside Korra and Mako before swinging his staff in a wide arc, using his airbending to release a wave of air at their feet, knocking them all over. Naga, during all this, who had been struggling to break free of her restraints, finally managed to free herself, using her teeth to cut the ropes. Getting back on her feet, Naga immediately leapt at the downed riders, causing them to scramble away from the large canine, roaring at them. Pabu jumping off of Naga's saddle and copying Naga's actions in its own attempt to intimidate them with its growl. The riders exchanged a look before tossing some more canisters to the ground, using the smoke that was ejected, before Naruto blew it away, to cover their escape on their motorcycles. Korra tries to use her bending to stop them from getting away, only for nothing to happen. "I can't bend!" the avatar shouted, frustrated. "I can't bend!" "Relax, Korra," Naruto told her, trying to calm the girl down. "It'll wear off," Mako added, in massaging some of the spots that he had been struck at. Those guys were chi blockers. They're Amon's henchmen. He identified their opponents. "Amon?" Korra repeated, remembering a picture on a poster that she had seen. "That anti-bending guy with the mask?" Naruto nodded his head. "He is the leader of this group that is calling themselves Equalists." "What do they want with the triple threats?" Korra wondered. Mako frowned at the thought. "Whatever it is, it can't be good," he muttered, clutching his forehead with one of his hands. "Ugh, I can't believe Bolan got himself into this mess," Mako groaned. Korra put a hand on Mako's shoulder. Mako, we are going to save Bolan. I promise. Korra told him. Naruto grinned widely as he stood beside Korra. That sounds like my line, Naruto said before turning his attention to Mako. Korra's right, we will rescue Bolan, and afterwards we'll be sure to kick his ass for causing us so much trouble. He finished surely. Mako blinked a couple of times in surprise at Naruto's statement before a smile appeared across his face. Yeah, that sounds good. Mako agreed. For the rest of the night the trio scoured the city in search for any sign of Bolan. Sadly, even after looking for several hours of searching they didn't find any sign of where the Equalists had taken Bolan and the other people that they had taken. We've been out all night. No sign of him. Korra pointed out to them all. We're going to have to stop at some point and get some rest and food, Naruto said. Otherwise, even if we do find Bolan, we'd be too exhausted to rescue him. The blonde airbender advised. We've got to keep looking. Mako insisted, even if he didn't want to admit that there was some sense in what Naruto was saying. Either way, he couldn't stop searching for Bolan. But where? I have an idea, Korra supplied. Korra took them to the same park that she first visited when she had arrived at Republic City, telling them about the protester for the Equalists that she had met there. Without any other leads, they all agreed that it would be best to go with Korra's plan and wait to see if the same protester would return so that they could question him. Eventually they found themselves leaning against Naga while they rested on the ground, Korra in the middle with Mako to her left and Naruto to her right. For a couple of seconds, they just sat around in silence before Korra spoke up. So, Korra started rather awkwardly. Why is Bolan running around with the triple threat triad anyway? She asked Mako curiously, wondering what the Bending brothers' connection was to the gang since Mako first showed some familiarity with them. Mako let out a sigh as he averted his eyes from either Naruto and Korra. Well, we used to do some work for them back in the day, Mako admitted uneasily. What? Korra shouted in surprise. Are you some kind of criminal? She asked with a bit of accusing tone. Surprisingly, Naruto was the first one to react by bursting out into loud laughter, drawing stupefied looks from both Korra and Mako. Hey, what's so funny? Korra asked Naruto, not completely sure if she should be feeling worried for Naruto or angry that he was seemingly laughing at her. Sorry, Naruto began, wiping a tear away from the corner of his eye. It's just the idea of the old man or the chief letting you hang out with a criminal is hilarious, he told them. How so? Mako questioned skeptically. With how paranoid they are, I wouldn't be surprised if they investigated your entire lives once. Korra told the old man she'd be joining the Fire Ferrets. Naruto told them. Seriously? Mako asked Korra, and he dumbfounded for the second time in only a couple of minutes. Yup, Naruto answered, nodding his head. I remember this once time I meet this guy with round glasses, and something about a helmet, when I was a kid. Later I found out that they sent him to some unnamed underground prison. The blonde airbender revealed ominously. At least I think that's what happened to him. He could have just moved away. Naruto finished with a shrug of his shoulders. And with that terrifying possibility in my head, Mako started, trying to shake the image of him and Bolan being thrown into some horrible prison. Bolan and I aren't criminals. I just ran numbers for them and stuff. Yeah, that's how it usually starts, Naruto remarked quickly. Ignoring him, Mako continued. We were orphans out on the street. I did what I had to do to survive and protect my little brother. He justified his actions. Korra looked down, ashamed that she had jumped to conclusions so quickly. I'm sorry. It must have been really hard. Can I ask what happened to your parents? She asked him, only to get slapped on the back of the head by Naruto. Hey! You don't just go around asking that sort of question, Naruto scolded the girl. A faint smile appeared on Mako's face before it quickly turned into a frown. It's alright, Mako assured them. Truth is, they were mugged. By a firebender. He cut them down right in front of me. I was 8, he told them. Mako, Korra said softly. Bolan's the only family I have left. The firebender continued, not acknowledging Korra or Naruto at the moment. And if anything happened to him. Several hours later, the three of them ended falling asleep against Naga, the weariness of having been out all night having finally caught up with them. Mako was the first one to start to stir, nearby shouting, rousing him from his sleep. Looking towards his companions, an amused smirk crossed his features once he registered the fact that Korra was now sleeping with her head resting against Naruto's chest, and that at some point Naruto had wrapped his arm around Korra's waist. The little scene didn't last long, as Korra soon began to stir as well. Well, don't you two look comfortable? Mako commented as Korra's eyes began to flutter open. Korra glanced over at Mako from over her shoulder, her eyes still heavy with sleep, not quite yet understanding what he was saying. Dismissing whatever it was as unimportant, Korra turned back to go back to sleep, resting her head back on Naruto's shoulder. It took a couple of seconds. Mako for a moment wondered if the avatar actually managed to fall back asleep, before Korra's eyes snapped open, finally realizing what, or rather who, she was resting on. With a shout, Korra pushed herself away from Naruto, inadvertently waking the sleeping airbender. What? What is it? Naruto asked, startled awake before letting out a loud yawn. What's going on? Nothing, Korra hastily answered, her cheeks tinted red, as she stood up and looked away from Naruto. Naruto looked at Korra strangely, wondering why she was acting so weirdly, looking towards Mako only to find the firebender barely being able to restrain himself from laughing. The airbender scratched the back of his head in confusion, trying to understand what was wrong with everyone that morning, before finally noticing that the person that Korra had mentioned was not that far away, shouting into a megaphone. Equality now! Equality now! We want equality now! The Equalist protester demanded through the megaphone, standing on top of a table with a stack of flyers. Non-benders of Republic City. So, that's the guy? Naruto asked Korra for confirmation. Yup, that's the guy. Korra validated, walking towards the man. Amon calls you to action. Take back your city. It's time for the man was shouting, drawing a small crowd before he spotted Korra approaching and let out a gasp. It's you again! The said, pointing at Korra. You cannot silence me, Avatar. The man proclaimed through his megaphone. Korra slapped the megaphone out of the hands of the protester, getting a startled yelp out of the man, as she glared at him. Shut your yapper and listen up, Korra told him angrily. My friend got kidnapped by some chi blockers. Where'd they take him? She demanded. I have no idea what you're talking about, the man denied. That's fine, all we need are these, Naruto said, walking to the table and getting some flyers that were stacked on the table, despite the protester trying to prevent Naruto from doing so, Mako joining them to read one of the flyers. Witness the revelation, tonight 9 o'clock. Mako read and then looked at the protester. What's the revelation? He questioned him. Nothing that concerns the likes of you two, the protester replied angrily. Give me those, the man demanded, trying to snatch the flyers back from Naruto. Whatever, Naruto muttered, sidestepping the man's attempts. Let's go. We got what we need, he said. Later, Naruto showed Korra and Mako the different pictures that were on the back of the flyers. It was something that the police had been long aware of. Unfortunately, while the Equalists were a worrisome group, they hadn't technically done anything illegal, yet, which the police could arrest them for. They had the right of assembly, even if most of the time it was for the sake of bad-mouthing benders and how the world would be better without them. It wasn't until that night that they arrived at the building that the revelation was supposed to take place in. Before making their way there, they had stopped to get food and a change of clothes so that they wouldn't stand out. All of them now wearing coats and hats, in Naruto's case wrapping his scarf so that it went over his head, hiding his hair, and in front of his face to hide the whisker marks on his cheeks. Here, let me borrow this, Naruto said, taking the red scarf that Mako normally wore and wrapping it around Korra before Mako could say anything. What's the big idea? Mako demanded with a light glare directed at Naruto for taking his scarf. Naruto adjusted the scarf on the lower half of Korra's face, keeping it hidden, and then answered. Out of the three of us, Korra and I are the most recognizable. What with my hair and Korra being who she is, we have to make sure we aren't recognized, he explained. Fine, Mako relented. Just take good care of it, and make sure to give it back, he told Korra. With an arm wrapped around one of Naruto's arms, for the sake of selling the act, Korra claimed, the three of them approached the door to the building that was being guarded by a large man. With his arms crossed in front of his chest, the bouncer took a scrutinizing look of the group, paying particular attention to Naruto and Korra. This is a private event. No one gets in without an invitation, he told them as he raised a questioning eyebrow at Naruto and Korra. Mako, noticing the attention that the bouncer was paying the other two benders, quickly stepped in between them. They were scarred, he told the bouncer before leaning in and whispering. They're kind of sensitive about people staring, Mako hinted before holding up one of the flyers that Naruto had taken. Is this the invitation that you were talking about? He asked hopefully. The doorman nodded his head after examining the flyer. The revelation is upon us, my brothers and sister, he told them in a much friendlier tone as he ushered them inside. The trio entered the building, finding it dark with rusted machinery scattered off to the side. Eventually, though, they came out onto a catwalk that overlooked a wide open area with an uncountable number of attendees. For a moment, they just took in how many people had turned up for the event. Mako gulped. I knew a lot of people hated benders, Mako admitted. But I've never seen so many in one place. It's terrible, Naruto muttered sadly. Korra and Mako silently agreed. We should keep your eyes out for Bolan, Mako decided as he led them down to the open area. They spent a few minutes searching the crowd, but ultimately, they realized that Bolan wouldn't be amongst the crowd. After fighting their way nearer the front, an announcer drew everyone's attention as he introduced Amon, the leader of the Equalists. Amon and a few Equalists rose up from under the stage with a cloud of smoke. Amon's clothes were similar to those of the other Equalists, with the exception of shoulder pads included in his outfit with red accents and a hood. The most distinguishing thing about Amon was the mask that he wore, a mix of white and cream and a large red circle on his forehead. My quest for equality began many years ago. Amon began, taking the microphone that was left on the stage for him. Naruto, Korra, and Mako listened as Amon told his story of woe, the tragedy that befell him and his family, getting sympathetic cries from the crowd. Amon then proceeded to belittle Korra and bending before finally revealing that the spirits had given him the power to take people's bending away forever. That's impossible, Korra said softly in disbelief. There's no way. This guy is insane, Mako claimed. Unfortunately, Naruto mumbled with narrowed eyes as he stared at Amon. That just makes him all the more dangerous. Amon then reclaimed everyone's attention when he started speaking again. Now for a demonstration, Amon claimed, having some of his men bring the captured benders forward. Please welcome Lightning Bolt Zolt, leader of the Triple Threat Triad, and one of the most notorious criminals in Republic City. The crowd, once Zolt was brought forward, booed the firebender. Ah, boo yourself, Zolt retorted rudely. Amongst the members of the Triple Threats was Bolan, bound and gagged. There's Bolan, Korra pointed out, moving to get Bolan only to immediately be held back by both Naruto and Mako. Wait, if we try to rescue Bolan right now, all we're going to end up doing is getting caught, Naruto told her. We can't fight them all, Mako agreed, as much as he wanted to go up there and get his brother as well. We need to be smart about this. Then we need to come up with a plan, and fast, Korra decided, glancing back up at Bolan. Zolt has amassed a fortune by extorting and abusing non-benders, Amon started off. But his reign of terror is about to come to an end. Now, in the interest of fairness, I will give Zolt the chance to fight to keep his bending, the masked figure said, drawing some disbelieving looks from some of the people in crowd. What followed could hardly be called a fight, as Amon quickly incapacitated Zolt, bringing the man down to his knees. Amon pressed his thumb against Zolt's forehead, the lighting that the firebender was creating slowly weakening before returning to flames before finally fizzling out. When the last of the flames died, Amon shoved Zolt to the ground. After a couple of seconds of lying on the ground, Zolt got back up and lashed out, trying to throw a fireball at Amon, only for nothing to happen, and for him to fall back over. What did you do to me?" Zolt asked fearfully. "Your firebending is gone," Amon answered stoically. "Forever." Amon then turns his attention from Zolt to the crowd. "The era of bending is over. A new era of equality has begun," he announced, causing the crowd to cheer, as an Equalist brought another bender forward. "Any ideas yet?" Korra asked the other two, concerned. "We need a distraction of some sort," Naruto decided. "Something we can use to cover us rescuing Bolan and then us getting out of here." "Yeah, I got it. Korra, see those machines?" Mako said, gesturing to a series of pipes on one side of wall. "They're powered by water and steam. If you can create some cover, we can grab Bolan without anyone seeing, then we duck out of here." Mako told them the plan. "Works for me," Korra said as she started walking that way. "Good luck, guys." "You too," Naruto replied. "And be careful." "Please, there is nothing to worry about," Korra said confidently. It took a couple of minutes, at which point Bolan was unbound and made to stand in front of Amon, before a large amount of steam started pouring out, covering everything and everyone. Reacting immediately, Naruto sent a blast of wind up at the stage, knocking Equalists onto their backs. Jumping onto the stage, Mako stopped an Equalist from attacking Bolan from behind and threw him off the stage. "Bolan, you alright?" Mako asked his brother. "Yes," Bolan answered, ecstatic. "Mako, I love you," he proclaimed, holding his arms out for a hug from his brother. "How about we save the embarrassing displays of affection for later?" Naruto said, appearing at the brother's side, keeping a lookout for any enemies. "And get out of here now." Exiting the building, the three benders come out on a balcony with a ladder leading down. Running behind them was the lieutenant, trying to keep the trio benders from escaping. "You two get down there. I'll hold him off," Naruto said, holding his staff in front of him defensively. The two brothers silently nodded their head as they proceeded down the ladder. The lieutenant stared between the retreating brothers and the one standing in front of him as he drew a couple metal batons, electricity coming off of them. "You're out of your league, kid," the man stated. Naruto smirked in response, twisting his staff at the middle before pulling it apart, a blade being revealed from each half. The lieutenant eyed the blades with a little wariness, not having expected that sort of weapon from the staff the bender had been carrying, but quickly dismissed any sort of concern, confident in his own abilities. "We'll see about that," Naruto replied. The two stared each other down for a couple of seconds before they charged at each other. They crossed weapons, electricity streaming off of the batons, and proceeded to pull back. Naruto swung one of his swords, only for the lieutenant to block it with one of his batons before countering with a thrust with his other weapon, which Naruto dodged by sidestepping away from the thrust. The lieutenant pressed his attack, trying to strike with his tonfas, only for Naruto to leap over the lieutenant after the initial strike. Naruto brought his swords down on the lieutenant, only for the man to roll out of the way. Getting back onto his feet, the lieutenant narrowed his eyes as he stared the blades in Naruto's hands, clutching his batons harder. "Wooden hilts," Naruto said, guessing at what the lieutenant was curious about. "Makes for lousy conductors," the airbender said with a grin. With a noticeable scowl, the lieutenant made another run at Naruto, one of his batons meeting with one of Naruto's blades before swinging the other baton. Naruto ducked under the swing before slashing upward with his other sword. The lieutenant backed away to avoid the slash, but could still feel the blade tear into the front of his clothes. Redoubling his efforts, the lieutenant attacked fiercely, to which Naruto dodged as best he could. "Focus," Naruto thought, trying to concentrate even as he dodged his opponent's strikes. Taking a couple of steps back, Naruto swung one of swords, the blade flat against his arm, the glider wings on the top half of the staff momentarily opening so that Naruto could blast the lieutenant away with a powerful gust of wind, knocking him back towards a wall. Wings once more closed. Naruto concentrated, his airbending tattoos starting to glow. Grind the wind against itself. Make it thinner, sharper, the airbender thought. It was a wind technique that he had been developing. This would prove the first time he used it during actual combat, and not just practice. Recovering, the lieutenant stared at Naruto curiously, interested in the glowing tattoos, choosing to wait and see what the bender had up his sleeves before re-engaging him. After a couple of seconds, Naruto ran at the lieutenant, the man's eyes widening when he noticed the slash marks that trailed behind the airbender's weapons. Ducking down, the lieutenant dove out of the way of the swords. Spinning around, the lieutenant stared in shock at the deep cut in the wall that Naruto's swords had caused. The lieutenant ran at Naruto, actually managing to hit the airbender in the back with one of his tonfas, electrocuting the blonde and drawing out a shout of pain, before the airbender turned around and brought one of his swords down. The lieutenant sidestepped the attack, holding a baton defensively to block the sword, only to be stunned when the blade not only cut through one of his batons effortlessly but cut into the side of his arm. Clutching his wound, making sure that his remaining baton didn't end up electrocuting himself, the lieutenant ducked under another slash from Naruto before lashing out in a crouch with a spin kick that landed on Naruto's abdomen. "How did you?" the lieutenant muttered angrily as he glared at Naruto. "Naruto, buddy, we need to go," Bolan's voice shouted from below. Glancing over at the railing, Naruto didn't even second think it as he ran to edge and jumped down, landing smoothly on the ground. Looking back up, Naruto, Bolan, and Mako watched as the lieutenant jumped down after him, electricity once more coming off of his baton. The three benders jumped away from the man to avoid being crushed under him, taking ready stances in case the man tried attacking them. Blood slowly dripped from the lieutenant's wounded arm as his gaze shifted between the three benders. "You benders need to understand there's no place for you in the world anymore," the man said darkly. What he didn't expect was for a slab of earth to suddenly jet out of the earth, slamming into an alley wall, hard, before crashing heavily onto the ground. Looking to the person responsible for the attack, they spotted Korra in a bending stance, dressed in her usual attire. "I wouldn't count us out just yet," she told the down man with a smirk before calling Naga. Chi blockers started pouring out of the exit that the benders had come out from. Reattaching his staff together, Naruto spun it, unleashing a whirlwind at the chi blockers, scattering a few of them about, tossing them every which way. "We really need to go," Naruto reiterated, opening the wing of his glider so that Korra, Mako, and Bolan could ride away on Naga while he flew through the air. As the chi blockers got back on their feet and began to give chase, they were stopped by Amon's voice. "Let her go," Amon commanded, instantly getting the chi blockers to stop. "She's the perfect messenger to tell the city of my power," he decided, watching the Avatar and her friends run away. Naruto and Korra eventually arrived back on Air Temple Island, both of them with uneasy looks on their faces. They came upon Tenzin talking to a couple of White Lotus sentries when he suddenly spotted them. A relieved look quickly crossed Tenzin's face as he dismissed the guards and made his way towards Naruto and Korra. "Thank goodness," Tenzin said gratefully. "I was just about to send out a search party. Are you two all right?" he asked them, looking each of them over for any visible injury. His concern for them having consumed him after they had disappeared for an entire day without telling anyone where they would be. "Not really," Korra admitted. Tenzin's brows creased in concern as he looked from Korra to his son, noting the troubled looks they carried. "What happened? Did you find your friend?" he asked them, coming to the most obvious conclusion that something tragic had happened to their friend. "Yes, but..." Korra paused for a second before continuing. "We were at an Equalist rally. We saw Amon," she told him. Tenzin's eyes widened in surprise, and if he had any hair it would be standing on end. "What?" "That's not the bad part," Naruto continued. "The worst part is that he can take a person's bending away. Permanently." Tenzin felt like his feet were about to buckle under him, just barely keeping himself from falling over. That's impossible," he stated. "Only the Avatar has ever possessed that ability." the master airbender said, sounding like he desperately wanted to believe his own words. But we saw him do it, Korra repeated urgently. Tenzin stared into the two teens' eyes and saw the truth in them. I believe you, Tenzin said quietly before letting out a sigh, looking off to the side. I don't know how Amon has achieved this power, but this means the revolution is more dangerous than ever. No bender is safe, he declared as he turned his attention back to the two teens. I need you two to tell me everything that happened. Don't leave anything out, he ordered them. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video, guys. Let me know in the comment section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video. Bye bye.